pidgin. By the end of the week, then we do a little...
By the end of the week, end of the month.
No. He said every week.
All right.
By every week. So that at the end of the month, you construct a phrase.
What he would like. He would like to be tested at the end of the month.
So at the end of the week, you give me a phrase.
Yes.
So you're learning,
right?
Every week you learn a word.
So by the end of the month, you give us a phrase.
At the end of the week, I will know one word.
Right. So at the end of the month, you will say a thing to me in a sentence with the 4 words that you have learned.
That I can do even now.
Can do. Go.
Inside the cloth.
Abijare inside the cloth.
Yes. Omo.
You have failed. You have failed. You have to do repeat.
Do you know the interesting thing about languages? You know what we call slang? Mm-hmm. If you look at the development of it and how it is, it's usually an effective and useful and needful communication tool.
Yeah.
Someone looks at what is available and it doesn't quite serve their need. No. So they decide, let's use this skill and this ability that we have to create something that resonates with us. And that's why it's so specific. But you give it time, and if you give enough people time to actually learn it,
it expands.
Then you hear the word pidgin coming in. Okay? Which some people argue, well, it's a form of English. No, it isn't.
It's English now.
No.
It's a derivative of English.
Actually,
because if you look at the word, split the words together.
Pidgin is pidgin.
It's words that were broken. It's broken English, which is...
Actually, that's really what I'm getting at. It isn't.
Yeah. Okay.
It isn't. It's just a language. The point
it's a mix and match, because in pidgin you'll find
all languages
are mix and match.
Right.
This is what we're getting at.
Yeah,
yes.
you'll find Yoruba words in there. You'll find English words. You'll find Hausa words. You'll find Igbo words. Like Oga, we use Oga all the time. It's a Yoruba word for boss.
So it's not a derivative of English.
What it was, essentially, the original pidgin was English that was, the words were chopped up because they couldn't really understand what Oyibo was saying, right? So they split up the words, and then as time went on, they added more and more and more to it.
There's something interesting here. If you want to talk about derivative of English, the statement needs to be entirely in English, but if you're a native speaker of a language, then you'll understand what the person is saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if someone, I'll give an example, okay? I was finding you, but then again, I was not finding you.
Yeah.
Good Lord. What is that?
And then I didn't find you.
But Eric has got it completely. What it means is, to try and, but listen, you can figure out and do.
I was looking for you, but I didn't find you.
Precisely.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes. That's now, every word, every syllable is in English. However, and then our tendency to attach the elongation of a word to distance. Then I went. I said, okay. All right, you went. Okay. Depending on how the way goes.
Then you're even further.
Yes, exactly. Now that is a derivative.
Or you repeat.
Oh,
You go.
Then you go.
Okay. Je comprends, monsieur.
Yeah?
Je comprends. I understand.
You have got it.
Kabisa.
Wait.
Okay. See?
Okay. So, can we now look at COVID-19 in numbers around the world? Fellow Kenyans was in Parliament yesterday. Anyway,
Kenyans was in Parliament yesterday and didn't tell us a thing. Anyway, moving on. So, it's being touted that the numbers in Kenya are dropping. Well, from what we've seen.
Which numbers?
Of positive cases. From what we've seen, that, fewer cases than what we had been seeing over the last couple of weeks. So 245 new cases announced, bringing the total to 30,365.
How many tests?
That's the thing. So now the tests are still at 394,566. Now this 245 was taken from a sample size of 2,433. So the sample size has decreased, which obviously would mean that this is now an explanation as to why the positive cases have decreased as well. If they were to increase the sample size, then maybe you would see a higher number of cases. We don't know. But there's some jubilation in some quarters that the cases are actually reducing in the country, because for the second day running now, we've seen cases under 300, whereas in the weeks before, we had seen upwards of 600 and 700.
I saw some quotas also talking about the percentage. So in every sample size, what percent is turning out positive? And it appears like that percentage is the one that appears to be declining now as well. And there are some people starting to say maybe we've hit one of the peaks.
The peaks are now coming down. It's on the same day that we saw a strain coming out of Malaysia, which is said, a report that there's a strain coming out of Malaysia, which is said to be 10 times more infectious than what has previously been reported. That is still being looked into. I'm sure we'll get more details of that as we go along, if it actually is the case. All right. So around the world, COVID cases have now...
What is it?
You know, No, let her continue. What I want to say can wait.
It can?
Yes, it can.
Okay, you were having a profound moment there.
No, I was just thinking of the 10 times, and I was thinking 10 times, how on earth do you arrive at 10?
Yeah, that's the thing. The research is still being done. That's why I said...
How do you arrive at 10, even 2 or 3 or 4?
We need to wait and see how they came. Yeah, it's not twice as bad. It's not 3 times as bad. It's
how
10 times
do we even know
as
it's a
bad.
strain? How do we know it's just not some other new disease?
Or how do we know that it's not several different symptoms presenting themselves for the same virus? We don't know that.
No, we don't.
Okay. So around the world now, 22,049,426 is a tally now. And yes, still looking at the United States as the highest number. South Africa, yes, still noticing some cases here, but not as high as they were before, with 589,886 cases. South Africa still at 6th in the world. India's cases still continue to rise, very easily reaching 3 million before the week is over. And Brazil is at 3.3 million. And we continue to see this. We saw that yesterday the parliamentary elections in New Zealand now have been postponed for at least 1 month from when they were supposed to be because of the coronavirus situation in the country. And the Prime Minister has said this is the only way that we'll be able to deal with that, by postponing these parliamentary elections. Because they still continue to see cases of community transmission in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the numbers continue to rise around the world, certain countries dealing with it differently. Nigeria had said they were going to open the airspace in October. We saw an announcement yesterday that they will open airspace this week. And so let's see how that goes, of course, with the supposed measures that they will put in place to make sure that everybody's safe while they fly.
What's the situation looking like in Nigeria?
Well, the cases, still epicenters shifting. The initial epicenter was in Lagos, and then the states of the southwest. But then now has moved up north, and then Plateau states, just specifically, is where the new epicenter is. 49,485 cases in Nigeria, with just under 1,000 deaths at 977. Looking at a population of 200 million people, the tests per population quite paltry at 1,705. Total tests not far from Kenya, with 4 times the population. Nigeria has only done 352,625 tests officially.
And the story there is?
The story is there that...
You can't find these testing kits, right?
I have other things to do, Jerry. We're talking about South candidate for 2023. We don't have time.
We have
to talk
issues,
about COVID,
other things
please.
to deal with.
We'll deal with
But
it.
what are the people saying on the ground in Nigeria?
The people in Nigeria will have continued to say that we can't let this thing stop. We have things to do. Business must go on. As it is, it was already bad. Everybody who even has wherewithal to get along with their lives needs something else to do. You can't tell us to stay home. We need to continue. And it's always been that way. From the very beginning, when COVID first made its debut in Nigeria, the people of Nigeria have been saying, look, you can't keep us at home. As it is, we need to go and scrounge. Then you're going to keep us home when the situation is bad? No, it's not going to happen. So in certain states, there have been lockdowns. In other states, COVID is your story.
Just deal with it.
You are not even going to talk about it.
Well, what's also making headlines around the world is a new saliva test. No poking your gullet or your nose Yes,
Fantastic.
the
That thing's terrible.
FDA has actually approved something they're calling Saliva Direct. You can actually now have COVID tested just with your saliva. It doesn't require fancy equipment.
So they just swab your mouth or
Yes,
you spit
reagents.
into
No,
something?
you spit into something. And test it. 4 hours later, the results are out.
And it's a PCR test.
Yes, and they're saying that this test has one advantage. All this equipment that you require with that test is not required. You just require certain reagents, and they're saying that in the course of the month, they'll make it available to hospitals in the US.
Okay.
But they aren't the only ones. Other people are also coming up with their idea.
So it makes it cheaper.
Infinitely cheaper. The equipment surrounding the tests that we currently have don't exist with saliva. You just require reagents in that container, and then you require your saliva. And then they put it through some equipment to determine whether your saliva meets the threshold for being COVID positive or not.
Positive.
Yes.
And that's it.
That's
4
it.
hours, the results are out.
Yes. Which tells you that there may be other people who are working on solutions that could even be 2 hours.
Yep.
Now, this is that same story of when you've had a disease with you for some time, all manner of innovations will come up, even as we get to understand it. To the point where we're going to get to a point where you can actually test COVID at home by yourself.
Yeah. Just do this.
Yes.
That people have not been doing that already? Oh, okay.
That
You
one.
know that you do with malaria. Ni malaria.
Ni malaria, yes. Kweli, ni malaria.
Just touch yourself.
Yeah, it's malaria.
And you know. Okay. So we will continue, of course, tracking the numbers, COVID-19 in numbers throughout the world and what's happening, what governments are doing in response to this, what the World Health Organization is saying as well. And, of course, more importantly, what the government of Kenya and the people of Kenya are doing in the fight against COVID-19. Good morning. This is A Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. 14 minutes after 6 o'clock. Let's take a break. We want to take a look at what's happening in the skies. And then when we come back, we will start to look at the big stories of the day. Good morning.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Juma.
Yes?
Have you heard the port is running an initiative to educate users of the port like you and me on the various processes for imports and exports?
Really?
Yeah.
So does this mean that we as importers and the various stakeholders will now clearly understand our roles?
Exactly. Once we understand these processes, we can comfortably sort out our customers with more knowledge. They have even highlighted the various tariff clauses.
Fantastic. So where exactly can we get this information to help us understand the processes?
Captain Cargo is here to help, and that's cargo with a K. Captain Cargo, brought to you by Kenya Ports Authority. Visit www.kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo and learn from Captain Cargo the ways of the Port of Mombasa.
As the world changes, so do we. We adapt to our situations to bring out the best in us. This is why the Standard Group and Oxford University Press East Africa have partnered to bring you Tutor Soma Online. For just 10 shillings, you have unlimited access to the reputable source of revision materials conveniently. All you have to do is log into tutorsoma.standardmedia.co.ke and make the most of the time for all students, including candidates for both primary and secondary schools. So, as we stay home, we keep dreams of future successes alive while making homeschooling an achievable reality together, effectively. Tutor Soma Online. Log in to
Tuesday
success.
morning, we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 13 degrees. It's going to take us up to a high of 24 today. In Nyeri, 14 degrees and cloudy this morning. Highs of 22 and lows of 13. And a chance of rain for later. Nakuru is mostly cloudy at 13 as well. Chances of rain, high, it's the forecast. Highs of 23 and lows of 12. Eldoret is mostly cloudy at 13 degrees. Thunderstorms are forecasted for later with highs of 19 and lows of 12. It's 20 degrees and mostly cloudy in Kisumu. The weatherman says that there will be rain there later with highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's mostly cloudy at 17 in Kakamega, opening up the skies into thunderstorms later with highs of 24 and lows of 15. It's mostly cloudy in Malindi at 24 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 23 today. In Mombasa, it's mostly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Taking a look then into Kakamega, it's mostly cloudy at 17 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 16, with thunderstorms forecasted for later in the day. Let's take a look out of Kenya into Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 19 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 18. And in Dar es Salaam, it's cloudy today at 23. Skies will open shortly to showers with highs of 28 and lows of 21. Johannesburg is chilly this morning at 9 degrees and overcast. It's going to be one rainy day in many days of summer. Highs of 16 and lows of -1 today. Lagos, clear skies at 24 degrees. It'll change later, though, to rainy conditions with highs of 30 and lows of 23. Let's take a look into Paris, where it's clear skies at 17 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 17. And in London at 17 degrees as well. It'll be a rainy day today with highs of 23 and lows of 16. It's Monday night in New York at 21 degrees. When they wake up, we'll go to a high of 27 and lows of 20.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
On Spice FM now. Remember, we will be looking at the big stories shortly, but let's start with today's big proverb.
One who causes others misfortune also teaches them wisdom.
I'm trying to think of a translation in Swahili, an equivalent. One who causes others misfortune also teaches
them wisdom. Yes.
I don't know. Spice FM KE on Twitter, if you can think of a Swahili equivalent of this one. One who
causes others misfortune also teaches them wisdom.
It's rather straightforward, I mean, in terms of...
It's not difficult to apply.
in terms of thinking about how to apply it. Very nice, very interesting one. So let's hear from our listeners. If you can think of it in Swahili or any other language, actually, just let us know any other translation of this. Let's look at the big headlines today. Start.
Okay. So, Day of Terror is what it's called on the front page of The Nation. Senate under siege is what it's called on the front page of The Standard. High drama, the gangland style arrest and ejection from Nairobi of 3 senators opposed to the government-backed proposal on revenue sharing was an open means to a secret end, to bar them from attending a special house sitting and ensure the preferred formula is adopted. But the plan flopped after the leaders outsmarted the government. So it's already being said that the arrest of these 3 gentlemen was to stop them from voting on the floor of the Senate House. And apparently this plan did not work. The high drama that characterized the ejection from Nairobi of 3 senators opposed to government-backed county revenue sharing formula was an open means to a secret end, according to what The Nation can reveal. In what was depicted, the shackles of doom chronicles, sources say Senators Cleopas Malala, Christopher Langat, and Steve Lelegwe were barred from attending the Senate special sitting to ensure a proposal by nominated Senator Petronila Wera sails through, only to flop at the 11th hour. Favoured by both the national and county governments, Ms. Wera's amendment to the House Finance Committee report seeks to retain the second-generation formula in sharing the 316.5 billion shillings this year, as it proposes to increase the county revenue share to 348 billion. Now, senators allied to President Kenyatta last Tuesday pushed hard and had Ms. Wera's proposal debated, even though it had been approved the same day. It leapfrogged at least 8 other amendments that have been on the floor for as long as 8 weeks. However, In an ironic twist, the arrest of Mr. Malala, Dr. Langat, and Dr. Lelegwe backfired badly as it failed to achieve its intended purpose. The arrests were condemned by politicians on the floor of the House and outside. So, according to this report, the arrest of these three gentlemen was to stop them from debating on the floor of the House. Or at least voting.
And it did.
And it did. It stopped them from doing this. So, the two have been put together as what you saw in terms of being an arrest and what you saw playing out on the floor of the Senate yesterday was a mightily choreographed scheme for what happened to actually happen. And fortunately, it didn't work. Now,
what were the three being arrested for? What are the charges? Because when you're arrested, there must be a charge. What were they being charged for?
Different things.
Everybody has their own misdemeanor.
Yeah, there was a swearing of oaths by 200 Kipsigis elders to kill Maasais.
Okay.
That was one charge.
All right, fine,
Okay.
fine.
What was the other one?
So that one, I think we can attach that to Dr. Langat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
Fine.
Now, if we go, I can't remember what the other two were.
There's no one there who has an issue with child support.
Could be one of the things, eh? Oh, you need to pull something out of a hat. At
Well,
some
I
point,
mean,
don't you?
these are the
We'll look at the remaining reasons as to why.
There's something about Malala and some sanitizers.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
what had happened. Had they expired?
Some funny story.
Okay, that's good. Mhm.
You know, until you're taken to court, you actually don't know what the charge is against you.
Okay, was any of them driving on the wrong side of the road?
No.
Okay, so Mr. Dr. Lengwe was arrested while on his way to his house, and by 1 p.m. he was being escorted to Samburu for questioning. He confirmed his arrest, adding that he had been summoned by
Samburu, the place,
the
the
Samburu.
geographical location which he represents.
Yeah, even
Yeah.
Malala was taken to Bomet.
No, him
Malala
as-
Kakamega.
Sorry,
Malala. Langat
Langat was taken
taken
to Bomet, right, yesterday. So he confirmed his arrest, adding that he had been summoned by DCI officers in Marilal to answer questions on escalating insecurities in Samburu North.
There you go.
That was that charge,
Right.
right?
Malala and the sanitizers.
Malala is said to have been driven to Mumias for questioning on several claims, including flouting COVID-19 pandemic rules.
So everybody had a reason as to why they were being taken away. And it was interesting because the whole rat race started, around 11 o'clock in the morning after a whole night of refusing to be arrested, okay? And now police at their doors. The reasons why they would not be arrested at night is because they said, look, it's the middle of the night. Whatever it is that I have done, you can't come and get me in the morning. So it was a back and forth, And then when they finally got them, it was like, we're taking you either to Embakasi or we're taking you to Kilimani. And then the rat race continued, and suddenly they were going to DCI. And then after DCI, they were then going to their respective counties. So it was...
So
it was your area police station.
We assume that
from
the
your-
respective counties were the scene of the crime.
Yes,
Okay.
this was the scene of the crime because, my goodness, we can't charge you in a place where you didn't commit the crime.
course.
So we must take you to your county
Yeah.
where these things that you're being accused of actually took place.
Yep.
How long does it take from Nairobi to Samburu?
Well, it took a very short time yesterday, apparently, because before the end of the day, they were there and charged, so it was done. Or at least
Go
the
all
questions
the way,
were asked.
Archer's Post, turn left.
Boom. Somebody, and then people tried to follow.
So
They made a
round the
bold
corner.
attempt. Their colleagues.
Nias is not around the corner.
No.
Bomet is not around the corner.
And none of these guys is being arrested in Ati or Kilimani.
No, home.
Embakasi, Kitengela.
Kitengela. You heard Senator Procurement talk about how he went all the way to Kitengela to try and find out what was happening to his comrade. They tried to follow, but unfortunately, they were blocked on the
Well,
road.
What I witnessed, if I'm to go by the clips I saw, was some very emotionally charged.
Oh, Procurement
speeches.
gave it a good effort
In the
yesterday.
Senate.
It was fantastic.
No, it was good.
Yeah, I tipped my hat.
And that one.
Yes, it was lovely.
There's something, anyway, we're going to be discussing this in greater detail later on.
Yeah.
So let me shelve what I wanted to say.
Okay, but just so you know, right? All of the events that we saw taking place yesterday was a bid to stop these three gentlemen from voting on the Senate.
Does
That
it,
works.
does it remind you of that TV series 24?
Yes.
And I was waiting for somebody to cue the music. But all right.
Yes. yes.
It just reminded me of John Mishuki. John Mishuki once said, the government can pull out your teeth one by one and then tell you to go and report. Go and report.
Yes, to the government.
Utadu.
And the same John Muchuki said, if you rattle a snake,
Yep.
okay,
Be prepared
yes.
to be bitten by it. All right, so let's look at other stories, other headlines today. Kagwe defends KEMSA over supply of 300 million shillings free masks. So the CS, fellow Kenyans, Mr. Mutahi Kagwe, went to Parliament yesterday and he appeared before the Parliamentary Committee on Health. And of course, the questions were surrounding KEMSA, procurement in KEMSA, and the management of the COVID-19 funds. And he was put on the spot by the National Assembly Health Committee. Over 300 million shillings allocated for purchase of masks for the vulnerable. It emerged that no mask has been distributed to the group, despite the money being disbursed to the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, in the last financial year for procurement for the items. He says so many people cannot afford masks when KEMSA is just sitting on millions. Vulnerable Kenyans are on a daily basis forced to make a decision on whether to buy food or masks. This was according to Muriuki Njagagua, who is the Mbeere North MP. But Kagwe said procurement of these reusable masks is ongoing and will soon be distributed to the vulnerable. And he said the ministry has received 300 million shillings and the funds were transferred to KEMSA and procurement of the masks is ongoing. Distribution of the reusable masks shall be undertaken through the national government using county commissioners. That is a small part of a big story. The 300 million shilling, what's that?
Nothing. Is that what people are using to? How people are using to
Yeah,
make
I mean, really. I mean, is that the reason why this man was appearing
Well,
before
in the
Senate?
Star, the CS is also quoted as saying that reports from media are not part of the proceedings in the House. Okay, this is, of course, when after he had dismissed the claims that 19 billion can't be accounted for. He said, these are theories and innuendos, and they're just fiction. I wonder if these are some of these statements that usually come back to haunt you, to bite you at some point. But anyway, he then also said, we are not going to rely on an innuendo or newspaper reports, but a report by the investigative agencies. He also dismissed the claims that they had spent 43 billion. He said they had only received 23 billion.
I think the issue also came up from the members of the committee yesterday that you dismiss something like this that comes out in terms of reports in the media, but at the same time, with the suspension of the CEO of KEMSA, that came out in the media quite glaringly as well. And why was that not dismissed? So the hand that you use to measure something in terms of its authenticity should be the same across board. And it was interesting that it came from one of the members of the health committee. In terms of how dismissive he was of these claims of rot.
By the time these committees call you, they may call it fact-finding, but they already have some facts. Otherwise, they wouldn't call you if they didn't have something that they wanted you to clarify. It's like an audit report. There's an anomaly. They've seen it. Now, you've been given an opportunity to explain it since you are the person in charge.
Yep.
Yes. Let's just hope that some of these statements, again, as I said, aren't the sort of statements that later come back to bite you or haunt you for that matter.
Yes. Especially when you say them, in such a manner of fact. So you basically are saying that this is false. Also, he said that this reports that the Jackma donations were stolen and sold in Tanzania. He said, come on. No.
How can things
surely?
be so
Yeah.
Why would they be needed in Tanzania? There's no COVID in Tanzania.
Yeah, these are just fiction and innuendos anyway. There's a lot that comes out in the media. And later, though, after he left Parliament, he posted a statement on his Facebook page. And he said, first of all, I want to acknowledge the story that was done by Dennis Okari of NTV. Although, of course, issues have emerged about one of the people who are the main characters in that story, and the credibility of that witness has been put to question. But the fact of the matter is that the story has raised many issues, and that now tells you, fellow Kenyans, of the kind of issues that I'm dealing with in this Afia house. He twisted it around and said, this is what I'm telling you guys. I'm fighting this kind of wars, right? That's why I'm really fighting hard. However, he has not said. Well, he has transferred a number of officers. He has instituted a purge. You remember he came in and transferred a number of officers from the Ministry of Health and organized that they be transferred to other departments. And that's what he says, trying just to rejig operations there in the Ministry of Health. It's 28 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we come back and continue looking at other big stories. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
And there's not much of it this morning, at least where we're looking for now. Coming off Mombasa Road as well as Thika Road today, if we want to look at both sides coming in those directions, it's not too crazy just yet. It's looking good along Kangunda Road leading to Outer Ring. Traffic at a glance, it's not bumper to bumper just yet. Everybody's able to go where they're going without too much of a headache. The eastern and southern bypasses are looking really good. We've had quite a number of accidents on those in the last couple of days, so we want to be careful as far as that's concerned. We're going to keep an eye out on what's happening in Mombasa this morning. It was quite crazy getting into the town yesterday morning, but we hope that has been sorted. So for now, just a bird's eye view says that traffic isn't too bad anywhere just yet. We'll give you more details of that as we go along. Let us know also what you see. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Stories of the day with Eric Lash.
Mornings done right.
Muga. CT, what interesting story do you have?
Well, I'm just, again, dovetailing on the story about the visit of the CS yesterday and to the August House and some of the comments that he made. But there's something even more interesting that is happening. Mm-hmm. According to a report on page 3 of the Standard, the Ministry of Health is seeking to establish something called the Kenya Center for Disease Control, KCDC.
Yep.
And what essentially they're doing is they're going to be removing key functions that KEMRI already has to this new structure, and they're going to put up a new building for it. New.
Building.
Yeah, building, as in put up from scratch, put up a structure from scratch. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what is also not clear about this matter was that what we're now calling KCDC was originally supposed to be called National Public Health Institute. Mm-hmm. Now, not very long ago, the same ministry spent 900 million shillings in putting up a structure within Kenyatta to house this particular building. So essentially what they're saying is, if this report is to be believed in its entirety, that with certain functions, KEMRI currently, by the way, takes and runs 70% of the tests that we have for COVID.
Right.
And yet, this funding we keep talking about that institutions receive, KEMRI is yet to receive, even as we're talking now. Okay? So we are planning, we have an institution that can do these things. We are planning to put up a new structure. We already have a new structure that was supposed to actually house this very institution. We've now changed it. What was National Public Institute is now going to be called KCDC.
Right.
So you want to ask yourself, where is the logic behind this?
I think you'd be hard pressed to find it.
In change of name or in change of what? Because it clearly shows
Shifting
that since that 2015, the plan was to build something like this that will deal with whether it's disease control or public health, whatever.
The plan may have been there, and it's understandable, but why remove functions from an institution that already has those functions and transfer them to another new one?
But also it appears as if the people who are supporting the KEMRI with this function, and this is the US CDC, had already indicated that they were going to stop supporting it.
Supporting it in what manner? You see, that's a blanket statement that doesn't seem to make sense. Please understand that one of the ways in which
a CDC Kenya spokesperson told the Standard in an email that some of the CDC Kenya programs will move to the US Embassy in 2021 or 2022.
But that happens all the time, Chief. It's not as though they're reporting as though it's a new thing. It's not new. Remember, KEMRI is CDC. KEMRI is the Kenyan equivalent of CDC. Let's start there. Okay. Now, as a result, CDC cannot conduct any research, whether it's CDC, whether it's Walter Reed, whether it's Wellcome Trust. They cannot conduct any research on human beings in this country without going through or working in collaboration with the one body created by Parliament to do precisely this, and that's KEMRI.
Okay.
So when they say functions are removed, what often happens with the funding over a period of time is that when they scale down funding, okay, what often happens is some of the functions simply disappear because you no longer need the funding for it has ceased. We saw the case with the blood, with blood donation in the country.
Yeah.
But what you're not told is that CDC is actually run from the embassy. When you're employed by CDC, you are an employee of the U.S. government.
It's the U.S. government.
Yes. You're not an employee of Kenya.
No.
Yes. Now, the KEMRI CDC Center, which is actually based in Kisumu, for the longest time was actually just considered a CDC center. But in the spirit of this collaboration, it then became KEMRI CDC to mirror and to reflect this collaborative effort that is there.
Okay.
So now, unless someone is telling me that CDC is going to be collaborating with this new institution that is being put up.
So CDC is an American institution.
It is an American institution.
All right.
100%.
And now Kenya wants to set up its own with the help of the World Bank.
This
Its
is what
own
this is
CDC.
what is being repeated here. But then
Right.
we already have a CDC called KEMRI. The very, very function that CDC
All
has
these
in
things
America.
that they are,
Yes.
KEMRI can
and
take
many
up.
would argue that
Yes.
the potential for KEMRI actually in this country has actually not been seen to its end. So why now bring in something new where you already have one functioning and that you could actually exploit even much more than has already been done in the country, and that's not being done. One side of the argument is what that is.
Yeah, why create another institution? Well, you could basically just
You've
support
built this
You could
institution.
buff up. You could buff
could-
up this one and make sure that it's giving you
Actually,
stellar results.
even without the support of the US. So now
Yeah.
you become self-reliant by being
We could be.
internally
We
funded.
could be. If apart from just paying salaries, which is what the government does, yet KEMRI has, should we say, in terms of employees, it has two categories. What you call KEMRI projects. Now, those are people who work in projects that go through KEMRI,
Yeah,
where the funding actually is channeled through KEMRI.
yeah.
And there's KEMRI Main. KEMRI Main are the people who are paid by the exchequer. Now, what you'll find is that KEMRI project employees are more,
Than the main.
probably 4 times more than the main. All right? It tells you the importance of the collaborative efforts that KEMRI has made over the years. Now, if you look at the various centers of KEMRI, 11, I believe, each of these centers try to focus on a certain area of disease, to the point where there's even a center within KEMRI that deals with traditional medicine. Now, most people don't even know this. If you talk about clinical trials, if you're talking about any kind of disease known to man, why do you think, for instance, the Center for Virology Research in KEMRI is the one who has been dealing with this? Because Kemri was ready. Kemri has been dealing with viruses for the longest possible time.
Yeah.
Kemri
The
has a center for-
capacity.
Yes, it does.
So tell me then, CT, because this story, if we look at it, there are very many other aspects that are coming in and out, in and out. It's quoting somebody called Abel Nyakiongora from the Health Ministry, saying that what was then envisioned as the national, what was it?
The Kenya
National
Center for Disease
Public,
Control, right, or
the National Public Health Institute, NPHI,
yes.
was part of an ongoing bilateral strategic dialogue between Kenya and the US, because NPHI was going to be an international project of the US CDC, which is in the process of establishing a chain of similar institutions across Africa and in other developing countries.
Well, in that case, they are going to replicate something that in the US is called the National Institute of Health. National Institute of Health, one of the things it does, it actually funds research projects. That's one of the things that it does. Now, we don't even have a sizable budget that we can speak of in this country that is actually set aside by the government to promote research. When I say sizable, I think it's probably, is it 1% or is it 0.5%? Yes.
Yeah.
Of our
budget.
budget. Yes.
Yeah.
So there is money that exists, but accessing that money, put it this way, it is better for you to look for some other way of funding a project rather than going through that channel. It is a lengthy, tedious, bureaucratic field process. But to understand this, you only need to look at our institutions of higher learning and ask yourself, what position does research take in these institutions? And you'll find it's very wanting.
Yeah.
Now, research is the heartbeat of any institution of higher learning. Because that's where you generate new ideas, new knowledge. Now, if research isn't given that sort of priority, so what do you think is going to happen?
What is going to happen?
And the funding of the government tells you. Why this is an issue is this. The reporting may be skewed in one direction, but note, this report also indicates that the Director General of KEMRI did not comment on this. When approached, he did not comment, which is wise in a sense. If something like this is happening, and it also, we're discussing this against the backdrop of an earlier issue where the Influenza Center and KEMRI, they seem to have been a tussle as to who should get the money. The Influenza Center doesn't have KEMRI's capacity for testing. And yet, the argument was they are the ones who seem to be getting the money for the reagents. So, again, this is a story that I think in journalistic terms it's an unfolding story.
Unfolding story.
Yes.
There you go.
It's one of
That's
those.
exactly what it is.
It's unfolding.
Actually, I think there's a lot. This story, if you can just get a lot deeper into it, you'll find a lot more that's happening.
Yes.
Even that whole issue of coming up with that concept of NPHI, the US CDC wanting to help establish such centers across Africa, and them pushing for the establishment of NPHI instead of working with KEMRI that they've been working with, and then now moving from NPHI to KCDC, and why it's being named that.
Yes.
Why do you have to create a new?
Yes.
There's a deeper story here.
There is, and that's why I brought in the issue of COVID. And remember, this building, this structure, supported by the World Bank, it was meant for COVID-19 emergency response project, the $1.3 billion US. That's what it was meant for.
Hey, okay. Anyway, it's 6:45. Let's take a look at. Let's take a short break shortly. But before we do that, we'll remind you about Captain Cargo, and this is the information portal by the Kenya Ports Authority.
Yeah.
So KPA has an information portal called Captain Cargo.
Yes, it does. And so if we're looking at vessel services today and what then they're able to offer and what Captain Cargo says they'll be able to do for you. So the vessel services processes is what we'll be looking at today. Basically what happens in terms of what is being offered to you. And we know that in this season, CT is going to be exporting...
Avocado.
No,
that was the other season. I now want to export. I now want to export pineapples.
Oh,
Pineapples.
pineapples? Okay. So your pineapples, in this sense, will be coming from thicker, and they're making their way to pick a country.
Well, I am not just going to pick a country. I'm going to pick the country that I've been exporting to.
Oh, right. There you go.
The UK.
Okay. So CT today is exporting pineapples from Kenya to the UK, and Captain Cargo is going to help us through that, and it's going to tell us about the vessel services that are available for Sweetie, who is exporting this very sweet product to the United Kingdom. We'll look at those details today.
Okay. This information portal is kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo, and cargo is spelled K-A-R-G-O. This is one word, Captain Cargo, K-A-R-G-O. You'll find all the information that you need to know about the operations of KPA, the services that KPA offers. Very simplified and straightforward that you can just look and understand. 13 minutes to 7 o'clock. Time for a break. We'll be back shortly.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
I've got a short one here that we can just look at and then move on to something else. Remember the back and forth in Ford Kenya? Where at some point Ford Kenya did not have a leader because the leader had been removed and then there was a new leader.
Then the leader removed
And then
the new leader.
Yes. Now, that leader who had removed the other leader has been removed.
There was the removal of the remover of the remover.
Ford Kenya leadership dispute took a new turn after a meeting at the party's National Executive Committee led by Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula expelled 3 legislators from the party. Those who were expelled are Kandui's Wafula Wamunyinyi, his Tongaren counterpart Esali Simiu, and nominated ward rep Cynthia Mutere. The trio, however, downplayed the decision by the executive as a farce. Wetangula is fighting to maintain his grip on the Lion Party leadership following an attempted coup instigated by Esali Simiu, who was then the Secretary General. Now, Esali Simiu was removed from Secretary General, and now he has been removed from the party, according to what happened yesterday.
This one will continue for some time.
Oh, yes.
Did they not go to the arbitrator of such matters?
They went
They
to
did.
actually the political parties tribunal, and it was ruled in the favor of Wetangula. They were told, you know what, you really cannot dismiss Wetangula. He is the bona fide leader of this party. And now, I think that's the strength that Wetangula is using to say, you came for me. Ha, my friend. I'm gunning for you next. Out.
Well, what is lovely about it, you know, Wetangula and Simiyu are contemporaries, as in they joined the University of Nairobi at the same time. Same time. And the people who've known each other for that length of time, they both joined the University of Nairobi in 1978.
The buddies.
Well, they've known each other for a long time, but this is the thing about politics, clearly interests diverged at some point.
Yeah.
And they diverged greatly. By the time you see such a tussle, it didn't begin yesterday. It's something that has grown and grown, and people have gotten to the point and they figured, you know something, let's take this head on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's the biggie here? So let's expect some more drama from this particular part of the country.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
We will.
Yes, let's.
There was a lawyer that we spoke about a couple of weeks back, and this lawyer's name is Adrian Kamotho. Adrian Kamotho had gone to court and he had lost an attempt to have the 41 judges that President Uhuru Kenyatta has not appointed assume office.
Yes.
And then he was told, procedurally, no. You're coming to ask for something that does not even exist. So he went back. He's back into court now. He is now asking the court to declare that these people have assumed office. Because if the president has not because since the president's constitutional role has abated in the instant appointments, it's in the interest of justice that the interested parties whose appointments have ripened by the operational law urgently assume their office. So he's basically said the people who are supposed to conduct the interviews and to nominate the candidates presented their names to the president. The president ought to have appointed. The president, because even the Supreme Court says the president has no other role, he has to appoint. Okay? And not the Supreme Court, but the Court of Appeal. Now, therefore, because the president has not done what he's supposed to have done, then his time has lapsed. So we just say automatically that these people assume office. So the next thing that the court should now compel is the Attorney General should be compelled to gazette them. And then he has also roped in now the controller of budget and saying the controller of budget should authorize that these people receive a salary and they start serving. And the Chief Justice should assign them.
As simple as that.
Yeah.
What I like about this case, you see, we have a constitution. Every time I hear of such a tiff, my heart gladdens. It's happy. Because it means that our democratic process is being tested. And we are trying to understand the practicability of it. This case should go on. Let's hear what our learned friends on the bench will have to say about it. This is good.
Yep.
This is how precedents are set. Because there was one side of the argument that we were told, Nani, go home. Now this is a new one. Let's see how this one will pan out.
Yep. This one basically he's saying, look, on February 6th, the High Court ordered President Uhuru Kenyatta to appoint the judges within 14 days. And those have since expired. The period given to the president lapsed on February 20th. Now, because in view of the reluctance, unwillingness, and the refusal by the respondent, this is the president, to show respect for the Constitution and the honorable court through compliance, this applicant has no other way of enforcing the orders of the court. Unless the honorable court grants the court orders, impunity will be further propagated.
Okay.
Because the president disobeyed a court order, did not even challenge that court order, that means there is no order on record in his favor.
Remember,
Plus,
the president has an entire department to advise him on such matters. So I do not believe for a single second that he ignored this as it's being presented.
Well, he did not. There was a court order. He didn't follow it.
He knows exactly what he is doing and why he's doing it. Because remember, the thing about court cases and the applicability of it is the concept of a precedence.
Yeah.
And how far that precedence can reach.
Yeah.
So, as again, let it play out.
Okay, looking at something else that's happening that I think is quite interesting. In Saudi Arabia, 10 women have been picked in senior government roles, has appointed 10 women in senior roles at Islam's 2 holiest sites. Authorities said Sunday as the conservative petrostate seeks to boost female employment. The appointment of women in senior positions at religious institutions is rare in the Islamic kingdom, which is in the midst of a wide-ranging liberalization drive spearheaded by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The women were appointed in 2 holy mosques in Mecca and Medina across various departments, including administrative and technical, according to a statement released by the General Presidency for the affairs of 2 holy mosques. The recruitment drive was aimed at empowering Saudi women with high qualifications and capabilities. The 2 mosques previously recruited 41 women in leadership positions in 2018. Prince Mohammed has sought to boost employment for women as part of his Vision 2030, which is aimed at diversifying the kingdom's economy and ending its addiction to oil. It's interesting because just a couple of years ago, we saw that women now were finally able to drive in Saudi Arabia. They were not able to do this before. And now being appointed to
Senior levels.
Senior positions in holy sites is a big deal. It may sound like something so simple when we look at it here.
It isn't simple.
But it is not simple at all.
No.
Women were really literally seen and not heard. And to see something like
and
this.
even not seen very often.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
even when seen, it was, very
fully
rare.
clad. Should I say covered?
Right. So I would say this is it's worth the news.
So do you think really MBS is fully committed? to these reforms?
I don't know if he's fully committed as much as that he wants to see this Vision 2030 come to, and he's going to do whatever he needs to do to fill in the gaps. I don't know that. I don't know enough about what he has said as much as I do about women, as much as I do about his Vision 2030, because he's been very, very insistent on this Vision 2030 has to be that Saudi Arabia cannot continue to rely on oil and has to be part of the new world order in terms of looking to new and more, globally friendly ways of making money or boosting the economy. I don't know. I think it's a means to an end, unfortunately. I don't know that it is one of the nails that's going to nail this down, unfortunately.
He's looking at the Emiratis and the Qataris and what they've done with their economies, and I think he's really, really trying to push into that direction.
For sure.
A diversified economy.
Remember, they have been infinitely wealthier than their neighbors for the longest time. But look at how the visionary perspective of their the neighboring leaders have ensured that those countries of theirs have diversified completely to the point where, yes, they produce oil, but they don't necessarily have to depend on oil to survive.
They're not heavily oil reliant.
Not necessarily. And their entire push seems to be in that direction.
Yeah.
We've got this oil money. How do we ensure that this oil money takes us to the next level where we don't have to depend on oil?
Yeah. So let's see how this one plays out for MBS. And it's also interesting to note that we are talking about the crown prince, not the king. He's the man who's running the country, right?
Well, why is the king not running the country?
Just taking a back
He's a
seat.
ceremonial
He's just
leader.
he's taken a back seat.
Yes,
Basically, he
yes. And has he really been very well? Not quite. But the truth of the matter is this. The truth of the matter is this. If you look at what's been happening in the Middle East, you have countries, specifically Saudi, who have been trying to just flex their muscles, political muscle, using the economic might outside their borders.
Yeah.
You see their hand even on the continent of Africa. So they have a new dawn that is beckoning them.
Let's see how it plays out.
Let's see how it plays out.
It's coming up to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, we live stream every morning on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. In the next hour, we want to take a look at what's happening in the construction industry in the country. So we'll be speaking with the head of the National Construction Authority, and also we'll be live on KTN Home. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, so let's look at one part of the city where there seems to be some trouble. 46, Kawangware. No movement, and it's absolutely crazy. Both sides of the road, vehicles moving and blocking up things, unfortunately. The police are on site to try and work that out. Traffic police trying to sort that out. But it's affected traffic all the way down Gitanga Road. It has affected traffic then towards James Gishuru. And so that's going to spill over to Wayakiwe, whether you like it or not. And that's what we're already seeing playing out right now. Mombasa Road, though, from the SGR leading towards the JKIA turnoff, not so bad. It's a bumper-to-bumper situation just about now. Hopefully that'll open up in a short while. It's the normal traffic musings of a Tuesday morning. Coming into the city, however, from Westlands, it looks like it's okay for now. It won't be too bad right around the University Way roundabout. Uhuru Highway, however, coming off of Nyayo Stadium all the way through to Westlands is bumper to bumper, but it should be opened in not too long from now. We'll take a look at other parts of the country in a short while, but for now you should be fine. Let us know if you're not. Help yourself and others. Spice of MKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room,
minutes after
the
7
only
o'clock.
way
Thank you
to
very much
start
for
your...
tuning in to the Situation Room on Spice FM 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 Kisumu, 96.0 Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, Malindi 97.7, and also we are live now on KTN Home. We'd like to welcome our audience on KTN Home. A very good morning to you. We are also live streaming the show on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Let's talk about the construction industry. So, in these times of COVID-19, of course, one of the things that we see is very many sectors have been affected by COVID-19. We also would expect, obviously, that the people who are hard hit immediately were people who work for daily wages, and many also work in the construction sector. So those ones have been affected. There's also the other thing of people who have already invested, for example, and you've started a construction or you're working on some project, and because of various factors on what's happening in these COVID times, that has also been impacted. We'd like to understand really what's happening to this entire sector on COVID-19 times. Construction is not a small thing.
It isn't.
It's a big sector. And then also when it comes to talk about the safety of the buildings that have been put up across the country, and during this time of COVID-19, when we also have a reduction of movement and even operations by very many officers, we still see some buildings still coming up.
Not some, many.
So you'd like to ask yourself, is there proper enforcement of the regulations here? Is there proper monitoring of this? Are we ensuring that the standards are being maintained? So there are very many questions here that always keep coming up when it comes to construction.
Well, I think the thing that probably comes to the fore with regards to some of the rogue developers who have put up buildings that collapse even before they have been inhabited. Some have been inhabited and then collapse. Is what do the agencies that are within the county government or the national government who are charged with ensuring the safety of such structures, because they exist, what do they do?
Yeah.
What have they been doing? And then there is the other question that I'm sure we'll be asking later. For the longest time, we had what we call a National Housing Corporation. The government seems, in its wisdom, understood that there was a need for the government to be directly involved in construction or the process of it. And a lot of the work seemed to have been in major towns. Now that we have devolution, what is its role and what is the role of probably other bodies that have come up since that are supposed to be involved in such, what is the national role of construction in the counties?
Right. We'll be speaking to the Executive Director and the Registrar of Contractors at the National Construction Authority. His name is Engineer Maurice Akechi. He joins us on the line now. Good morning, Engineer Akechi.
Good morning, Latif, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, Kenya, for the opportunity.
Welcome to the Situation Room, Engineer.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm ready.
Great. Now, let's start off from the very beginning with the National Construction Authority. We know that the National Construction Authority came up just a couple of years back, and it has very many roles. For example, your title is Registrar of Contractors as well as Executive Director of the National Construction Authority. Just give us a brief overview of what NCA is and what it does.
Thank you. And once again, I want to greatly appreciate the opportunity you've given National Construction Authority, and so that the wananchi at large can be able to understand what we do, and we sensitize them and create awareness. I want to believe at the end of this show, there'll be great level of awareness to our listeners and the audience of the country at large, and what they need to do should they want to put up a structure. So National Construction Authority is a government agency created by an Act of Parliament, Act number 41 of 2011. So we've been in existence actively from around 2013, so about 7 years. And the main mandate why this institution was created by an Act of Parliament is to oversee the construction industry and coordinate its development. So that is the overall mandate. But if you look at what we do specifically, I'll not break them down the way they are in the Act, but I want to ensure that wananchi are able to understand what we do. We do three key things under our many functions. One of them is a regulatory mandate, and under regulatory mandate, we register contractors. Contractors are those who are engaged to undertake the business of construction, be it construction in building works, construction in road works, construction in electrical works, any type of construction you talk about, even dams or railway. So these are the people whom, for them to undertake that kind of business of construction, must get a license from National Construction Authority. And this is for both contractors who are locally within the country, and even those who come from outside as foreign contractors. They must get license from National Construction Authority for them to be able to undertake that business of construction. The other second regulatory mandate within that first pillar is basically accreditation of construction workers. This is where those who are now employed by the so-called contractors that I've mentioned up there get an accreditation license, meaning that they are qualified to do the work they're supposed to do as fundis, as you may know it. And this includes both accreditation of construction workers and site supervisors. So in a nutshell, they are supposed to get a license that gives them the mandate to act professionally or do professional jobs, whatever they do, whether they are plumbers or masons or electricians, and so on and so forth. And then we also register projects. This is a requirement by law where any developer, before commencement of any construction works, must bring their project for registration, apply for registration at National Construction Authority for purposes of getting a compliance certificate. Remember, compliance certificate means that they have complied with all the other regulatory requirements, including county approval, where that is required, including other approvals like either environmental body, and so on and so forth. So by the time they come to us, it means they have met all the other requirements for them to be able to be registered, for those projects to be able to be registered by National Construction Authority. And then lastly, on the regulatory mandate, we do what we call quality assurance. This is where we now visit construction sites that are ongoing, and if we find any issue that is not in compliance with whatever you have registered, or even a project that is not registered with us, we mark that famous, put that famous X, mark called X, the red X, that is renowned for NCA. Though that's not our logo, but apparently people know us for putting X's
synonymous with you.
along buildings. So in a nutshell, that's our regulatory mandate. But the other second thing is capacity building. And capacity building is where we now train the contractors we've registered. We also train the construction workers and the site supervisors that we have accredited. And this is a requirement so that a contractor, in any year they're holding a license, they must attend a training so that their license is renewed at the end of the year. Because these licenses expire at the end of every year, the package license. So for them to renew their licenses, they must have attended a training organized by NCA or in collaboration organized by those partners of NCA in terms of training. And then lastly is advisory. Advisory mandate means that even today, if any stakeholder is looking at an opportunity to be advised on any matters regarding construction or certain things that they would want to find out, they would come to NCA and pick that information. Remember, from all that I've explained, there is so much information we collect that can be used to advise the industry on what needs to be done. So we have a regulatory mandate, capacity building mandate, and advisory mandate, amongst many other functions that we do. But all I wanted to emphasize is that all these functions I've mentioned are actually available online. So from the comfort of where you are. What you need is a device, an internet, to be able to get our services from National Construction Authority.
Okay, so from all the things that you've explained this morning, can we just look at the country, for example, and ask, for every construction that is either taking place now, has been on hold, or has been completed, each and every one should have essentially gone through the NCA. Is that what we're saying?
Correct. That's the correct position.
Okay, so if you were to take a walk along Mombasa Road, for example, or even further up, maybe one of the dormitory towns of Nairobi, one of the dormitory areas, Syokimau or Kitengela, every construction that is taking place, for example, should have been given the prerequisite license by the NCA, or should be operating under such?
Any construction that came into being from around 2011, when the Act was created, should have complied with all the necessary requirements of the law, and should have received a compliance certificate for them to have even commenced that construction work. And that is what is expected, so that when we carry out those quality assurance checks and we find something is missing, or a gap for that matter, then it causes us to issue a suspension notice to the extent that now, until you meet the requirements, then we cannot allow you to proceed with the construction works.
So what happens in the cases where, for example, buildings collapse, as we have seen this has happened quite a lot, and when the due diligence is done or where investigations are carried out, something is seen to have gone wrong? How is that dealt with? Something is seen to have gone wrong in the issuing of a license, in the proper investigation having been carried out to make sure that this was a viable project. What happens in cases like that? Because we seem to see buildings collapse and then, we just carry on with business as usual.
The owner of the building is sought and arrested, and that's it.
And that's it. The owner of the building is arrested. We saw a school collapse in August last year. Owner of the building was asked a few questions. That's done and dusted. We move on. It seems that that's the order of the day. Something terrible happens, a building collapses, people die, there's an evacuation, it's done. What should be the process?
Well, a couple of issues have been raised in the questions you've put across, and I want to start by saying that buildings have been collapsing, and even structures have been collapsing. Building, because of the nature of their criticality, because buildings house people. But also there are other cases where you have structures collapsing, like you could have a dam collapsing, you could have a bridge collapsing, and so on and so forth. So these are challenges that have come across from time to time. But remember, there are many causes that lead to a building collapsing or a structure collapsing. It could either be a deficiency in terms of the quality of material. It could either be workmanship or poor workmanship, as you may call it, which is a contribution to the level of skill set and even the capacity of the executing team or the implementing team. It could also be as a result of a misstep. But more so, all this happen if there is a gap even in terms of quality control or even quality assurance process as the progress of construction goes on. So in a nutshell, to be able to answer your question, there are procedures or processes that are supposed to be done. When a structure collapses, the first thing to be done is investigation to establish the cause of the collapse. And during that time, of course, when investigations are going on, the first issue or culprits normally are the actors of that particular project or construction. In this case, we would have the client or the developer. It would have also the professional team, either the engineer, the architect, or the contractor who are involved, and all the players. So until the investigation is complete to iron out who was actually the culprit, then that is the time an action will be taken based on the finding of that investigation. But in a nutshell, there are many causes towards the collapse of a building that can, when investigated, the culpability level will be identified. But I want to say this. In March of this year, 2020, there is an amendment of National Construction Authority Act under the Business Laws Amendment Act of 2020, which now gave provision for legal action against those found culpable for actions of either not having followed the law or not having followed the suspensions that we issue from time to time. This now means that if somebody is issued with a suspension notice to the developer and they do not comply and they are taken to court and the judge finds them culpable, they can either be fined a fine of not more than 1 million or a jail term of not more than 3 years or both, depending on how the judge may determine the case. So this now gives some teeth, if I may call it, to be able to ensure that people are more alert and able to comply, because now there is a penalties provision in place.
Are you saying that before
also,
this, you didn't have the teeth? You didn't actually have the
Yeah,
tools to enforce this?
We had a tool to the extent that we could issue as many times as suspension notices, but beyond there was nothing specific that we could do against anybody who continued defying, those whom we may refer as rogue or perennial defiance.
What about revoking their licenses?
That is for contractors. That exists after the board has carried out investigation and found a contractor culpable. They may take any action, 3 of them, either to revoke the license or suspend the license for a period of time, or just caution the contractor. But remember, for the developer, there was nothing specific. But this particular amendment now cuts across all the players in the construction industry as far as the penalty provision is concerned.
What role does the NCA have in construction that relates directly to industries?
That is to mean factories?
Factories.
Yeah. Now, you see, Latif, construction...
this is CT Muga, not Latif.
Sorry.
Don't worry.
It's all right.
No, Latif is actually very happy to be referred to all the time, so it's perfectly okay. Yes.
No problem. Let me say this. Construction is just a process, but it refers to any other product you get at the end of the construction. Whether you're constructing a factory or an industry, as you may call it, whether you're constructing a road, or whether you're constructing a domestic dwelling unit, or a commercial center, or a power line, or a dam, all this is part of what we regulate as National Construction Authority. So to that regard, we have a role as far as construction of industries or factories are concerned, to the extent that they follow the required guidelines and the procedures and the regulatory regime of the construction rules.
Do these rules also encompass the environmental concerns that normally go with industrial constructions?
Yes, and this is where I said what National Construction Authority does at the time of project registration, before commencement of that construction work, is to issue a compliance certificate after the project owner has applied for the same. And when they're applying for this construction for compliance certificate, we expect one of the main requirements, among many others, is a NEMA license. So we normally ask for NEMA license as a proof of having received the nod from an environmental body to give you the green light to proceed with that construction work. So they'll have looked at all the requirements that will interact or affect the environment, to the extent that at our end, we ensure that you've gotten the NEMA license, but we go beyond that extent. We also even do a due diligence to confirm that the license they have presented is also in order.
What does the due diligence involve?
There's a lot of collaboration.
This due diligence that you say you conduct with the NEMA, what exactly does it involve, the details of it? Let me explain why I'm asking the question, because in the recent past, we've had many cases of industries that have run afoul of the law because they have actually, in the process of doing what they do, they've been causing harm to the people who live in the environment. Meaning it is clear that whatever they were doing, there were certain environmental conditions they had not met. That's the background from which I'm asking the question.
I get it, but I also want to answer giving 3 types of stages or scenarios.
Yes.
There is, during construction, there is what we call pre-construction conditional requirements. There is during construction requirements, and there are what we call after construction requirements. Now, when you get the license, and I don't want to talk on behalf of our sister agency, NEMA, but all I know is that during when the license is issued, normally there are a lot of conditionalities given that the project implementing team, including the contractor, the professional team, and even the developer, are supposed to comply with, so that by the end of that particular process of construction, they have they have done what is required. I'll give you a very simple example. The construction, even during preparing the access to get to the construction site, or even during the site clearance, there are so many requirements that are supposed to be done. At that stage, when we come for a quality assurance check, we'll be looking at, because you'll be about the license, so we'll be looking at whether you are complying with all those requirements. And that now borders to even environmental safety. And when we talk about health and safety, we look at all that. Now, during construction stage, there are also other issues with either dust pollution and so on and so forth. And then post-construction, during the operation of the facility that was being constructed, again, there are many other environmental requirements that are supposed to be looked into. So in a nutshell, you need to look at it in each stage and find out what were the conditions given and if those conditions are being complied with. And that's why even NEMA has a mandate to also continually keep inspecting to find out that the conditions they gave are being complied with.
I hear you have said that it was one of my questions in terms of who you collaborate with. So NEMA has come up, quite often. So let's say that, there is a construction that's taking place in a particular area. And we know for a fact that it doesn't have any licensing, but those who've continued to put up this construction have said they're going to continue anyway, and they'll sort it out. Meaning that somebody has been seen, as we like to say, for this construction to continue. What would then be the recourse by the NCA if you come and then find that this construction went up without the proper licensing? And if in the unfortunate event that something should happen, what would be the recourse taken? I'm giving this scenario based on an actual thing that's going on now. So I would just like to know, as it's playing out now, what then would be the recourse?
Yeah, a very good question. And remember, we are in a country where we have very good laws and legal systems. And the question is valid to the extent that what is the recourse? Now, as I've told you, from March of this year, the recourse is now very clearly, the framework is very clear and very straightforward, to the extent that if we issue a suspension notice to the extent that there is no compliance by that developer that for the construction they are undertaking, we give them 14 days to comply with the requirements, and failure to do so, and we will take a legal action. And the matter will be taken to court, which is now justice system. And if they are found culpable, as I've said, of course, they'll either be fined a fine not exceeding 1 million, or a jail term of not more than 3 years, or both, depending on what the judge may find. And this is now something that will be for us very effective in terms of enhancing our enforcement and enhancing even the level of quality out there, because people now will be saying, hey, wait a minute, you see, now we can't do this because there will be a straight action, straight jacket action that will be taken against us if we don't comply.
I think the questions that emerge out of this, Engineer Ketch, is on the issue of your capacity, because you clearly are in charge of every new project that's coming up across the country. The question that I want to ask after we come out of this break is, do you have that capacity? And how many officers do you have on the ground who are conducting all these inspections, quality assurance, and all? We are speaking with Engineer Maurice Akech. He's Executive Director and the Registrar of Contractors at the National Construction Authority. We are talking about the construction sector, the enforcement of the regulations in this sector, what the regulations are, and how this sector should be operating. Keep it right here. We're going to take a quick break at 26 minutes after 7 o'clock to look at the weather and traffic, and then we'll be back with the NCA conversation. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM and KTN Home.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
It's warming up ever so slightly in Nairobi. 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 today, and those partly cloudy conditions will continue through till evening. Light rain showers already taking place in Nyeri at the moment at 14 degrees, going to a high of 22 and coming down to lows of 13. It's 13 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nakuru, taking to highs of 23 and lows of 13, and a wet afternoon forecasted for that town. Mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 13, highs of 19 and lows of 12 with thunderstorms expected for later. It's 18 degrees and partly cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 27 and lows of 17. It's also going to have some rain. It's expected in Kakamega as well this afternoon with highs of 24 and lows of 16. Currently mostly cloudy conditions at 17. And in Malindi, it's mostly cloudy at 24. It's going to take to highs of 27. Taking to highs of 28 in Mombasa, it's mostly cloudy currently at 24. And at 17 degrees in Kakamega, it's going to go to highs of 24 and lows of 16 with thunderstorms in the afternoon. Let's look at Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 19. Highs of 26 and lows of 18 with mostly cloudy conditions to ensue for the rest of the day. It's cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 23. And the rain is intermittent here and there in cloudy situations everywhere. In Johannesburg, it's cloudy yet again and still continuing, and a drop in temperature to about 8 degrees. It's coming down to a low of -1 today. Mostly cloudy conditions to continue throughout. And finally, for now, in Lagos, it's 24 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, going into an afternoon of rain with highs of 30 and lows of 23.
Everything nice. All right. Okay.
Spice up your life.
It's not looking too bad today on the
Traffic.
road. So coming out of Mombasa Road and heading then towards Bellevue, you're gonna get stuck just a little bit with the construction that's going on with that new road. But it won't be too bad until you get to the roundabout at Nyayo Stadium. Uhuru Highway from Nyayo Stadium all the way to Westlands. It's moving along slowly. It's not too much of a headache right now. Getting into the CBD from Westlands, getting in from Langata Road, Gong Road, Thika Road and Mombasa Road won't be too crazy at the moment. We're not looking at overly heightened levels of traffic today. So it's great. Should something pop out, let us know. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 7:30. Welcome back. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online, www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We are speaking with Engineer Maurice Akech. He's Executive Director and Registrar of Contractors at the National Construction Authority. And the National Construction Authority basically is the body mandated to license any form of construction happening in the country. And Engineer Ketch has just told us, from your domestic house to factories to residential estates to dams to electric power, every construction that's happening in the country should first get approval and license by the National Construction Authority, which then afterwards needs to conduct regular inspections for quality assurance and to ensure that you're complying with the license that's given to you. and with all the conditionalities that are given. Now, the question that I said we're going to ask as we come back out of this break, Engineer Ketch, what is your capacity around the country to enforce this?
Thank you for that question, and I want to address it in threefold. Capacity is can be viewed in many areas. One of them I want to talk about is coverage capacity. By this I mean how spread are we across the country. The other second part of it is the resource capacity in terms of how resourced are we to be able to offer a quality job in terms of enforcement and what we do, and in terms of oversight in the construction sector. And the other capacity is in terms of the human skill, or whatever you want to call it. So let me start from the coverage capacity. I want to confirm that we are now across the entire nation, and we serve the nation from 27 nodes across the country, where we have offices in 27 locations across our country, from the far north to the far east, from the west to the south, and all this is served from those regions, and all those nodes are headed by regional coordinators that are also in charge. So this is for purposes of quality assurance, and where you need a physical inspection visit from time to time. But remember, we also have 52 Huduma centers across the country, where we have officers in those Huduma centers for what we call the last mile. This is where they interact with those who have to do with the physical visit to our offices that require maybe inquiries, we want to ask questions, and they'll be assisted. So this is the first port of call whenever you want an NCA service, and you are maybe not able to go through. I mean, you tried online, and maybe because of either a challenge or so, you're not able to. So you visit any Huduma center, you'll find NCA staff there, and you'll be able to be assisted.
So these are the offices that you have around the country. Now, the next thing you said is the resource capacity.
Yes. So in terms of resource capacity, this is where now you're talking about the human numbers, and you asked how many staff are we? How many are we in terms of staff? We are more than 350 strong staff employed by National Construction Authority, and these are also spread across those offices I've talked about, supported by the headquarters office at KCB Towers in Upper Hill. That's where our headquarters is. And we also have vehicles that we use from those offices to do quality assurance inspections and visits to be able to undertake our activity.
How many vehicles do you actually have?
We have 45 vehicles across that support works in these offices, and they actually also have capacity to go to rough terrain, because construction does not happen on next to a road. So some of them happen in the middle of nowhere, and they must be accessed. So we have vehicles that have, even in terms of capacity of the vehicle to access the construction site, that is there. But the other issue I want to talk about is about the technology. Remember, we already put our services online. So in terms of capacity, in terms of how can you reach us online, so that we don't need to just work on the personnel numbers. We're also talking about the technology in a way that from the comfort of our offices, we're able to receive as many applications as possible. We don't need to see a queue. You remember an online queue is much easier to manage than a physical queue. So with this, it also gives us opportunity to serve as many Kenyans as possible through the applications we receive online.
Thank you very much for the way you're answering this question, engineer. You're clearly an engineer. You're very methodical. You start from...
Systematic.
Very, very systematic. Now, let's look at the 350 staff that you have in the 27 regional offices and their capacity. So practically, how many buildings or how many projects is one officer supposed to be in charge of in terms of inspecting and ensuring that they're complying?
Well, now I think this is something that is keen to our work plan, and I want to confirm that every year we have what we call our targets, performance contract targets that is set by the government, and I want to confirm that for instance, this year we have set ourselves to carry out inspections for about 20,000 construction sites across the country. So if you divide those 20,000 over the 12 months, over the number of staff we have, this case, the technical staff, that's what they're supposed to cover within the year, from 1st July 2020 to 30th June 2021 next year.
How do you arrive at the 20,000 figure? This is against a backdrop of how many constructions happening in the country?
Yes, it's a good question. It is based on, first of all, the past numbers we have covered. It's also based on the current business environment and the number of constructions that are going on. So it's normally something that is a target that is set based on some statistical numbers.
So maybe I should just ask this one directly, maybe from the very beginning. How many constructions do you license in a year?
That depends on also how many project owners or the developers or people who want to undertake construction investment apply. But
I'm assuming you don't license the owners. You actually license a specific project.
We for purposes of project construction, we give compliance certificate to the owner. The responsibility of application of a project registration, so that you get a compliance certificate, which is the ultimate document to get a vend, lies with the project owner. So we look at the owners in this case for purposes of project registration. But for construction, the execution of the work itself, the owner needs to have identified a contractor who is already licensed by NCA, who now will be part of that particular project to implement the project for them.
When you talk about application, are you suggesting perhaps that there are people who actually begin the process without being licensed or without seeking approval?
Yes. That's why we exist to carry out inspections and quality assurance checks to check that they have either done that application or they have not done. Some of the non-compliant activities we come across, or cases we come across out there, is a developer having not applied for a project to be registered by NCA. So yes, sometimes they carry out work without doing that, and those are some of the.
Is that why we then see the big red X sometimes? Is that the reason?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's the reason we put the red X, among other reasons, like lack of safety, lack of a qualified contractor, lack of not having a professional, and so on and so forth. Not having a accredited construction worker, and so on and so forth.
Talking of construction workers, is it mandatory for all construction sites to actually insure their workers?
In terms of insurance,
yes.
We have a contractual requirement, which is called mostly it's a standard practice in construction contracts, where a contractor must have what we call work injury benefit, that is the WIBA, which is something they must take out as insurance before they begin construction work. This is very important for the safety of our construction workers and site supervisors and anybody who is within that site and under the purview of the contractor to do the construction work. Because should they get injured, it is this particular insurance that will be able to cushion or help cater for whatever costs that may arise and compensation thereof.
So are we suggesting, therefore, that all the constructions that have received the nod from NCA insure their workers?
Yes, when a developer or a client or a project owner is applying for a project registration, one of the documents they must submit to us is what we call a contract or evidence of an engagement with a contractor. And that contract normally has a provision for WIBA. WIBA is a very standard practice. That is work injury benefits that they must take out for purposes of compensation whenever an injury may occur.
Okay, Engineer Ketch, sorry. When you talked a few minutes ago about the fact that then each individual who's working on a construction, for example, must have something you called compliance, right? A compliance certificate, something that they should have. But we have quite a number of, I would call them ad hoc constructions that take place. So it's really anybody who is able to work comes along and works on a construction. Put that in a box for just a second. If we look at constructions that take place in other countries in the world and something happens, for example, there was a building collapse in a European country last year, and they could get down to the very individual who did not put a particular bolt in a certain place, and they were able to call out that individual because of that, down to the nitty-gritty. In this country, just now looking at capacity and other things that you've mentioned, can we be sure that you can have this kind of razor-sharp capacity, razor-sharp oversight when it comes to something as sensitive as this in Kenya?
Well, what is expected, and it's a very good point you raised, is by click of a button, just by a click of a button at the comfort of your computer, and that information, we call it information warehouse or a data warehouse like National Construction Authority. By a click of a button, you are supposed to see who are the individuals involved in any particular project. I'll give you a very good example. For instance, if today you're doing your house, and I'll start with your house as an example, or if you're doing another one, in case you already have one, what is expected is that you bring that project for registration at National Construction Authority. So first of all, you will know that you are the owner. Number two, you will also indicate who is the contractor. So you will know which contractor is going to build it, and at the end of it, we'll know which contractor built it. Number three, we'll also know which professionals you've engaged, like who is the architect, who is the engineer, who is the quantity surveyor. And they must also accept that, yes, they are the owners. I mean, they have accepted to be part and parcel of that project team to offer professional responsibility or advice during construction. And then all this given, we'll also continue carrying out quality assurance inspections, visits, until and when the construction is over. We'll even know that you also have county approval for that particular house you're building. We'll also know that you received the NEMA license and so on and so forth. So by click of a button, we'll be able to get all this information together. And if anything happens, we'll know which parties were involved in that particular project. So in a nutshell, the answer is yes, that by complying with all the requirements by National Construction Authority, you're actually putting yourself to the level of accountability, level of responsibility, to the extent that you will not mind people knowing who did that project and who was involved, so that in case anything happens, you can easily be contacted, and the right action or questions will be taken depending on what issue has happened. So that is a very that's the expectation that as National Construction Authority, we have all the information about any project happening in this country.
Talking about information of all the projects, does the NCA concern itself with the source of funding that developers have when putting up their constructions? I ask this because many anti-corruption agencies in this country have, should we say, we have read accounts of allegations that a lot of money that perhaps may have been received through corrupt means have ended up in the construction industry.
Well, to the extent of funding, what NCA looks out for when you submit your project when a developer submits a project for registration in order to get a compliance certificate, what NCA looks out for is the value of that project. What they call the contract value. How much is it going to cost for you to put up that project? But it is something you've raised that is very important, very interesting. That do we find out actually where is the source of that funding? So the answer is no. What we ask is how much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
But where the money is going to come from, that one we've not looked at it in the past. But I also want to explain something. You raised something which I need to clarify to Wananchi, the issue of the documents we issue and the compliance certificate. So there are three things that, in terms of what we call it, what I would call papers or certificates coming from National Construction Authority. When I visit a construction site, I expect to see a compliance certificate. Compliance certificate is for the project which was issued to the developer that indicates what's the project name, who is the contractor, and so on and so forth. So that is issued for the project. So I do not expect everyone on that side to have it. It's a one single document that is pinned somewhere, but we also have it on our system.
Okay.
The second paper we issue is the contractor on that project needs to have an NCA license. So in that regard, I will expect that contractor to have NCA license valid for the period the construction is taking place. And then the other document I expect to find on site is an accreditation card, which should be held by each skilled construction worker and each construction site supervisor to the extent of how many there are. So if there are 10, I need to find 10 of those. If there are 20, I need to find 20 of those. But compliance certificate is one, contractor certificate is one, or if there are more than one contractor, then to the number of contractors on that site.
Yeah.
So those are the documents we issue as MCA. Thank you.
And Engineer Ketch, I've got to really acknowledge here the fact that this organization has been in place since around 2011 to 2013, right? And already having 27 officers around the country, having over 300 staff around the country, it's something we cannot just sit back and say, okay,
very commendable.
You've not done anything. I mean, you've really moved somewhere. But I want to come back to the issue of your capacity, because this is where, when something goes wrong, we all point our guns at the National Construction Authority and ask, where were you when this was happening? And I'm just looking at this and saying, you'll issue a compliance certificate because somebody has come to your office to apply, and when they're coming to your office, they have to produce everything else. They have to produce the local county authorization, they have to produce NEMA authorization and everything. And as long as the paper checks, then you are also able to see, all right, so this is a project that we can authorize. But when it comes to enforcement and checking quality assurance and quality control, and this is where now officers need to have boots on the ground, I still need to come back and ask, 350 officers around the country, looking at all the construction that is happening in the country, from domestic homes. Like you've just given an example of Ndu constructing her third home. I think she already has two, constructing her third home, and all these others. Are your officers actually able to be there and see when things are going wrong before they go wrong?
Yes, and two approaches to that question. One, if the developer did the right thing and came to NCA for project registration, will automatically flag it off from day one that because of this particular application, we are aware it's going to start, and now we put it as part of our things to do within the quality assurance visit framework. Two, if earlier you had asked that you just do it without bringing it to the attention of NCA, it has not sought any approval whatsoever. In that case, we'll just stumble on it. That yes, we were visiting a site and we came across a project, and yet it was not even registered by NCA. In that regard, we will take necessary action. But what I'm saying is that when you talk about capacity, I want to confirm that for all projects registered by National Construction Authority, we are able to know where they are, and we're able to visit them during and carry out inspection during the construction work. Remember that amendment that I talked about of the NCA Act and the Business Laws Amendment Act of 2020 also has includes a very important provision that makes inspections mandatory, meaning that as a developer, you are duty bound to seek out for National Construction Authority to come and inspect your work or your project, your construction project, and even NCA is also duty bound to visit those projects to be able to ensure that they are being done the right way. So this amendment is the key to the enforcement that we're talking about.
Are you saying, engineer, that somebody who's constructing a new building somewhere in Ntarara, Loitoktok, is duty bound to seek the inspection by NCA, and NCA should come and inspect?
That is correct, and because Loitoktok is in Kenya, and we have an office that can access Loitoktok at a very short time and notice, and we are able to get there. And that particular.
So, in how long would this request be honored?
We have our service charter. We talk of depending on the requests. Some will take 2 days, but we are within a maximum of 7 days. We'll have reached out to you whenever you call upon us. So I'm asking all Kenyans that let's be responsible. let's ensure that whatever we do is for our own sake and the safety of those who will occupy it, or the security of the investors, so that at least you don't have to suffer losing it after you put up investment using hard-earned money.
Let's talk about COVID now. I mean, because this is the reality that we have, the reality of our days. You have very many workers that maybe have gone through the entire accreditation process to work in a construction industry. But with COVID now, with the very many people who are losing their jobs, one of the things that they may end up doing is finding a job in the construction sector. And yet maybe they haven't gone through that whole accreditation process or certification.
Let me answer it this way. And first of all, it is a fact that COVID has affected many sectors, and construction is not an exception. And if you look at globally, and coming back to our country, there is a reduction in the number of even projects being registered by National Construction Authority. That's really an indication that things have been affected. Talking numbers, if you look at when COVID started, the first case that was reported around mid-March 2020, and so if you look at March to June 2020, and March to June 2019, and March to June 2018, you would, I want to confirm that 2018 to 2019, there was an increase in the project registered by NCA. But March to June of 2020, there's a reduction by 35%. And when we expected an increase, there was instead a reduction, meaning that that was already a disruption in the number of projects being undertaken in the country, because this is now what we rely on in terms of statistical data. So this has disrupted also the supply chain of construction materials. And the question you asked was about laborers and the construction workers. So even the labor has been affected. And this now means that the construction workers who are part of the critical fabric of our construction industry have also been affected by the COVID pandemic. So also funds to do with construction have been, some of them have been diverted, either to deal with the COVID and so on and so forth. And there's also an issue with fluctuation of prices in terms of the building. So in a nutshell, COVID has affected the industry a great deal, to the extent that some projects have been closed, some have been have slowed down, and some have actually been temporarily put on hold. So in a nutshell, there's a reduction in the number of activities in the construction industry, and this affects the construction workers as well.
Maybe a final question for you, engineer, is that does this not then also present an opportunity to clean up in terms of policy, or to make sure that things are standing as they should be then when it comes to construction around the country, or increasing capacity, or making sure that you're working on certain things while there is this downtime across the world? Is this not an opportunity to make sure that policies then will be adhered to when things pick up again?
Very good point. In fact, it has brought us to the level where now we are looking ourselves as an industry regulator. We are looking ourselves as a country, and we are saying that we look at the issue of risks and risk management. This is the time now we are working on even plans that can be used to caution in terms of even offering training for the industry. Remember, before I answer your question, there is that requirement for contractors to be trained. And previously we were doing it physically. So because of COVID, it has now given us an opportunity to relook at our mode of deliveries, our strategies, in terms of how do we reach out to our stakeholders. So we are now doing more online formulation of online programs that we can still be able to continue offering our services, especially where we need physical interaction, especially the training and the accreditation, that we also sometimes have to visit sites to reach out to the construction workers, so that at least going forward, even when we are affected, we can still be able to offer those services. So yes, there's an opportunity in terms of upgrading our online activities to be able to reach out to our stakeholders, even as we have the pandemic with us.
Sure.
Indeed, every cloud has a silver lining. This is what they say. This is an opportunity for all of us as a country to learn, take up the lessons, and learn something new with this COVID-19 pandemic and what it has brought on us. Thank you very much, Engineer Maurice Akech, for speaking to us this morning, and we wish you all the best with the works at the National Construction Authority.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
And I also thank Wanai for listening.
We
And I
will
hope,
we will hope that you'll
reach
be
out
able to come to the show again at some point, Engineer.
Thank you. I'll be looking forward to that opportunity again. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Engineer Maurice Akech is the Executive Director and Registrar of Contractors at the National Construction Authority. Time to take a break at 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is a Situation Room on Spice FM and KTN Home. We'll be back shortly. So www.kpa.co.ke/Captain KARGO. Captain Cargo.
So CT is exporting a sweet treat from here all the way to the UK, and there's a process that Captain Cargo would like you to follow, or rather explaining to you how it would work, CT. So you're on the sending end of things now. So what essentially would happen is that you would arrange to book a space with a shipping agent, and you're issued then with a shipping order. So you've just plucked your pineapples, right? And
Harvested.
okay. I'm sorry, farmer.
Okay.
You've just harvested your pineapples and you're trying to get them to the UK because, you know, it's the summer and they're interested in all these fresh fruits. All right. So you would book your space with the shipping agent and you'll get a shipping order. Then your agent would now submit this information to KPA, and then you would have to pass your entry with the Kenya Revenue Authority, which is KRA, to make sure that all your things are in order, right? So you've gone through the first 3 steps, and as we go along, then we'll see what would happen so that you can get these things on the way.
So basically, Shippy is sweeping what?
CT is shipping a sweet treat from Kenya to the UK,
brother.
and Captain Cargo is waving you along
This
in fine fashion.
tongue-twisting malady, it has afflicted all of us, hasn't it?
I like this one.
It's a beautiful morning. Shippy is sweeting.
CT is shipping a sweet treat to the UK.
Okay.
Thanks to Captain Cargo, he's going to be able to get this done in a very seamless, effortless process.
Great. Coming to the top of the hour, CT, remind us today's proverb.
Today's proverb. Okay, what did I say earlier?
Okay, let's just go to the top of the hour. This is a situation room.
All right, let me just remind you. One who causes others misfortune also teaches them wisdom.
Wow.
Do you have any close translation of this in Swahili or in your mother tongue? Please let us know. Spice FM KE on Twitter. One who causes others misfortune
Also teaches them wisdom.
All right. It's a situation room. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu.
All right, let's take a look at how it's looking. It's actually not looking so bad. Mombasa Road is also not so terrible right now. It usually was the hot spot for a lot of traffic in the mornings, but it's actually looking good. As you're trying to make your way into the city centre today, you won't have too many problems. We see a bumper-to-bumper situation, however, between Nyayo Stadium Roundabout and all the way to Westlands, and this is on Hulu Highway. The southern and eastern bypass is not causing too much drama today. So apart from that, it's looking really good. Hopefully, we won't get into too much of a mess right now. Coming off of Thika Road, a little bit of a hold-up right at the Pakani underpass, but everybody's coming through there trying to get into the CBD, at least to get to the Globe Cinema roundabout. Should be fine thereafter. Let us know if you get stuck anywhere. At least we can share the word and maybe find an alternate route, shall we? Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way
2
to
minutes after
start
8
your
o'clock,
day.
it's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM. Spice FM broadcasts from Nairobi to the entire country. We're in Malindi, 97.7. If you're in Nyeri, we're on 90.9. Eldoret and its environs, 96.7. Anywhere within Nakuru and its environs, stretching all the way into Bomet and Sotik, 96.0. 102.5, Kisumu and the environs. Mombasa, 87.9. And this is Mombasa into some parts of Kilifi and some parts of Kwale. And also Nairobi and its environs, 94.4. For the next 1 hour, we are also live on KTN Home, and we'd like to appreciate our audience on KTN Home. And this hour, we are also broadcasting on www.spicefm.co.ke. So let's talk about what has been covered. The front page of the main newspaper this morning. Senate under siege. This is the headline in the Standard this morning. Senate under siege. And of course, then it has the pictures of several senators and what they've been quoted as having said on the floor of the Senate yesterday. This is because a number of them, 3 senators, had been arrested, and they had been taken to their home counties from their residences within the Nairobi metropolitan, and they were facing various accusations by the police. This is the senator for Kakamega, the senator for Samburu, and the senator for Bomet. And because of that, and yet because the Senate was expecting to have a sitting yesterday to thrash out this very contentious formula on revenue allocation, their colleagues in the House, especially those that are in the so-called Team Kenya, were not amused at all. And they managed to ensure that the morning session aborted.
And it happened.
Yep.
It did.
Simply because they were saying, look, this is this way of conducting arrests. If I just to quote Johnson Sakaja and what he said, those conducting arrests, I believe, are doing it without President Uhuru Kenyatta's instructions. Just an appeal to His Excellency not to allow overzealous officers to taint his legacy. His legacy is not of clamping down democracy. He's a Democrat. And then the former Deputy Speaker of the Senate, Professor Kithure Kindiki, who is a senator for Tharaka Nithi, said, the Parliament of Kenya must face the executive head-on. Parliament must face the judiciary head-on. There is no way we are going to entertain any arm of government to run this institution. We will not allow it. Arrest us, kill us, torture us. We will not yield by fire or by force. And then the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet, Kipchumba Murkomen, also spoke, and I want to play the clip from Kipchumba Murkomen's speech yesterday.
This Senate this morning is not being asked to adjourn so that you can assist this side or the other on the question on the basis of allocation of revenue. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I have refused, as a matter of fact, to go or prosecute my position on the question of voting for resources, because my position is not superior to those who are on the other side. It's a question of when you vote, the other side, which has the numbers, can pass. But, Mr. Speaker, to arrest 3 senators, to make it impossible for them to come and make their decision, to subvert the, Mr. Speaker, sovereign right of the people of Kenya under Article 1 of the Constitution, that was donated to Senator Malala, Senator Langat, Senator Lelekwe, to come and exercise on the floor of this House. And for any colleague in this House to support that process, Mr. Speaker, it will be a pity. It will be, Mr. Speaker, the worst day.
Indeed. And that is what the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet said, among others. Basically, those in Team Kenya came out and they spoke and they poured out their hearts and they said, we have spent the entire night moving from the home of one senator to the other who had police officers camping outside their gates. And this happened. They were arrested.
So it was the worst day in Kenya yesterday.
This is what the nation says,
according,
right?
according to the senator, yes, it was the worst day for him. But what I wonder is, we've seen occasions when the security forces are purposed and focused on arresting people. Does it require the amount of drama that we've seen here? They simply come and arrest you. So, this is one of those situations where...
When we see legislators being arrested, there's always some drama. We have seen it. It doesn't matter. Leaders, political leaders, it doesn't matter whether it's a governor who's being arrested somewhere in Taita Taveta County, or a Muranga MP, or a Muranga governor, or members of parliament who have gone to visit a radio station and they're being arrested. We see drama. This we expect.
So we've established...
So when we saw this on Sunday, like,
okay. Which brings me to my point. This is one of those, should we say, unique situations where you don't deal with a truth, you deal with truths. There's a plurality to it. That they were security forces, truth. That they had gone to arrest the senators, truth. That these senators had on many occasions taken a position that did not seem popular with another body of senators within the Senate, truth. What is also true, there's a lot more about this that we don't know.
Absolutely.
Truth.
The drama that took place, I think, we expected the drama, right? And with the arrests and all of this yesterday, coincidentally, there's those who say they don't believe in coincidence, but coincidentally with the same day when this vote was supposed to be taken, or at least when this debate was supposed to come to its logical conclusion, right? Supposedly, for the 9th time.
It was hoped.
It was hoped that for the 9th time, maybe the 9th time in this case was the charm. And then all of these things then happened on the same day. The optics, if for the optics alone, did not bode well for anybody who was against that argument that they were arrested or that this drama took place to stop them from being on the House of the Floor. It could have been any other day. And then when you look at the weight of the charges that were then leveled against these three gentlemen, seriously, it could have been on the said day. It could have been tomorrow. It could have been for a minute. But it was a whole day of drama to stop them from being in Senate. And anybody who wants to run away from that, then,
is this also another truth?
Look, it's another thing that you mentioned about truth. Truth to me could also be an untruth to you. It's true to the person who sees the optics and says, look, this is clear that this is what's happening. Especially then when you want to look at the charges that were then leveled against these guys. Flouting COVID-19 rules and protocols.
Yes, it's an offense.
It is an offense. However, when were these rules flouted? Was it that it was done on a particular day and then you didn't arrest said individual that day and you could only find him...
Or didn't find the individual?
You could only find him at his house at midnight on the 17th of
Finally,
August.
we managed to track him down
to his home.
Our officers, with the help of the members of the public, managed to track him down to his home, and that's why we sent our officers there to go and
then yet another gentleman who
request him to accompany our officers to the police station.
Another gentleman who is said to have taken an oath with 200 elders then to slay Maasai, members of the Maasai community. We don't know when this was said. Those details were not given.
Actually happened?
We don't know that it actually happened, but that was the charge. And then yet another individual then who was charged with having information about irregularities against in Samburu when it came to security. For crying out loud.
But again, not very long ago, there was one esteemed senator who was being sought by police for having flaunted these same rules that we speak of.
And when was he arrested?
Same night.
Exactly. Same night.
I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
Did we question that indeed he had flouted the rules? Was there debate about this? No. And this
one of the reasons why there was no debate is because there emerged a video clip.
Yeah, and the action by security personnel was immediate.
Yes. And it was quelled completely by the said senator himself coming out and issuing an apology. And
Admitting guilt.
Yes, exactly. Now, you see, when you are dealing with such an issue, sometimes you have to go a little bit into history and ask, what are we dealing with here? It's a hangover of a time gone by when you were not allowed to disagree with the government or with the government position.
You were not allowed to breathe in a different direction, CT.
You could breathe as long as people weren't looking at you breathing. You could breathe. But if you breathed where you're not supposed to breathe and in the wrong direction, then there were consequences. And that's what some of the senators are referring to, that there's a time in our history when people were known to disappear. Yes, we don't hear of it, but the truth is that that mindset of what the security forces can do and will do remains with us. So even if they may have a case, our first thinking will be, no.
Draconian.
These guys are back to their old tricks again.
Yes. And
so they will not be given the benefit of doubt.
Who's we now? The security agencies or the national executive that's trying to push down something through the Senate?
The difference
because there are
is
two things.
The difference is the same.
One is an arm of the other.
If let's say that this sitting had happened yesterday and the vote had passed, and then that night police officers had gone to visit these three senators to arrest them, would we be talking about that this is the executive trying to ram down these senators because of their stand?
Eric, since you asked the question, why don't I respond to the question? How do you know the executive is behind it?
See, now that's what I'm saying. The allegation here is that the executive is the one that is trying to push it.
Some of the senators have actually gone out and said so. But then I come to the same sentiment, since it's a season for sentiments, that I've held on these matters. This is good. Let this Senate adjourn even for the 20th time. It is okay. We are seeing, and we are having it played out before the entire country, what you would call the actualization of these processes that we have in our constitution. And there's something even more interesting. All these senators who are, should we say, have been allegedly been picked on, are young. They qualify to be young. They are younger senators. It brings me to this thought process. The likes of one Mr. James Orengo, senator for Ugenya. I'm still thinking of his, you see, history.
His MPship, right?
See, you're stuck in this
I'm
era.
stuck on, yes, and this guy is a whole senator
Former
for an
member
entire
of
county.
parliament for Ugenya,
Yes. What we're seeing here are the sort of things that people like Orengo were involved in many, many years ago. They didn't like something, they said so. And it cost them. We're talking about waves. Yet it appears that an alternative truth could be we are seeing yet another wave of younger senators saying, you know something, we are not going to be pushed around. Sorry.
No. We're not going to take it as those who may have come before us would have taken it.
No. That others who came before them actually didn't take it. That's why we have this space that we're talking about. If they had taken it, this space wouldn't exist. So, it is a season for plural.
So you're looking at it from various angles. So
Yes,
one
I am.
is the angle of, and the question that we need to address, is the Senate under siege? One.
No, I don't think so.
The other one is that you're saying the emergence of a new wave of younger political leaders, firebrand political leaders who are trying to position themselves.
Yes.
And they've taken this perfect opportunity of saying this is a perfect opportunity for us to latch on and to demonstrate
Yes.
that we stand for something.
We stand with the people, not for.
We stand with the people.
With the people.
And everybody else, the old people, stop
They're
standing with the
clearly,
people.
they're clearly retrogressive and they don't stand with the people.
That's why they're calling themselves Team Kenya.
Yes, it's a perfect opportunity.
As if the others are not Kenyan senators.
You see, now, how do you draw a parallel here? The older generation of politicians who stood their ground, were they positioning themselves so that they could be elected, or were they doing it in a matter of principle? You'll have to ask the same question now. Are they doing it in a matter of principle, or
for
have they seen
political
a lovely
alignment?
political opportunity to make sure that they grab the headlines and that people see them as those who stand with the people?
And fighting for a foot in terms of justice.
Yes.
Right.
Which is which?
the questions will pop up. And for you to think about it in that manner, that it's likely that the same thought has rested on the minds of very many people when they saw things playing out the manner in which they did yesterday. And the way in which they will play out next week. Because this is still happening. At the end of the day, look back. Take away all the elements of drama if you can. And look back to the point that brought us here in the first place. Still, don't have an agreement. There's no white smoke in terms of what's going to happen with the allocation to counties. It's still up in the air. It's going to happen. It's not going to happen. In what way is it actually going to happen? But all the drama, I would agree, is pointing people towards that arrow. That needle is pointing towards political alignment as opposed to getting something done. As opposed to who will be remembered for what it is that they spoke most passionately about, who will be remembered for whose side they stood on. And at that point, that's when you say, okay, so this is what it really is. This county revenue allocation could have been done on day 1 if they wanted to, as opposed to week 9. It could have been done on week 1. But here provided a beautiful opportunity for then people to show their political might. And that's what we see. Did we see anything beyond that yesterday?
So who is showing their political might?
I would say everybody here who has an opportunity to open their mouths and speak as passionately as they did yesterday. Whether you're arguing for or
Are there
or
forces
against.
outside the Senate that are also trying to show their political might?
Well,
That
what do you mean?
possibility
Look at-
exists.
the possibility exists when you have 3 gentlemen who are arrested who could have made sway on the floor of the Senate. They were arrested for things that you could ask yourself and say, okay, well, it's possible that this could have been done last Tuesday. Didn't happen. It happened to have been done on Monday the 17th. Could have been done on Friday. That conversation could have happened.
You know, the if
So you have to
perhaps,
ask yourself if the other
could have been
Yeah.
can dominate this conversation.
It could, but what is politics? Politics is a perception to you as well. It's the perception that you have. Well, this is what I perceive to be the truth. And that's what it is to everybody. That's what it is to you. The way you perceive it is totally different from the way somebody else perceives it. But then it comes together and makes for that environment that you then choose to vote or not vote on.
So this powerful force that's outside the Senate that would be trying to flex its muscle, it's the one that could be said that is placing the Senate under siege.
It could be.
And what is it that it would be pushing for? I mean,
Are they really-
if it's really about a formula and about getting a formula done and sitting people down and convincing them that, you know what, guys, so this is where we are at. There's 316.5 billion shillings that has already been agreed on by IBEC, that has already been passed in the Division of Revenue Bill. That's done. All right. Now we have a formula, and this is a constitutional requirement. Now here we are. There are people who feel this. There are people who feel the other. We can work out. It's possible that this, this whatever influence that is outside the Senate could influence the same people and just sit them down and.
Eric, have we ever
send it
seen
point across.
this amount of back and forth in the Senate since its inception? Ever, 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 ever?
In the last 7 years, no, we haven't.
No, we have. Why? See, since we are into pluralism here, or plurality, there's 2022. We're in August 2020. Okay? No one is blind to the fact that a lot of what politicians do is always with an eye to the future. And the future here means them being elected again.
Right.
Okay? So, in all this time, the executive has existed in the last 7 years. It's the same executive. It's not as though it's a different one. Same. But they haven't had issues. Why? Perhaps there's been an ease with which people do things in that they came to an easy understanding of how they should move along. So the issue here is them dealing with change. Remember, we're talking about change being the agent that most affects us where COVID is concerned. Not COVID, change. The Senate seems to be grappling with just that same concept, change. Meaning, you thought you had agreed, and someone saying, no. I may have given the impression that I agreed, and at that point I may have agreed. Right now, please allow me to disagree. Say, what do you mean? I said, I've just disagreed. Someone says, actually, I agree with this person. We have disagreed. What is the matter with you people? We had agreed. I said, yeah, okay, now.
A third one
says, no, actually, it's just even I.
See another one.
You see? I said, what is the matter with these people? So are we dealing, again, with the historical position that we have, that when we hear a certain voice from a certain direction, we comply. And now the change is, the voice has been heard, and there is no complicity.
So why not comply with this one, and yet you've complied with the ones previously, and you're going to comply with the ones in the future?
You've actually gone to the heart of the matter. So what really is at play here?
Because I can look at this. So we're talking about the younger senators, right? Let's call
They-
them the
they are
young
younger.
Turks, the Team Kenya, the young Turks.
Yes.
Kipchumba Murkomen, Johnson Sakaja of Nairobi, Mutula Kilonzo Jr. of Makueni. Let's talk about the Senator for Narok, Ledama Olekina, and the others, like those people like Eno Kwambua of Kitui. So these are, let's say, young in age and also young in politics in terms of now the number of years that they've served in political positions, elective political positions, right? So we can say that these are young Turks, younger Turks, trying to find their space in this political space, and therefore they have chosen this particular opportunity to go against Big Brother.
It's a good opportunity, especially if you then create a narrative that goes along with it. Gaining, losing. Good narrative.
Marginalization.
Bas. Now, when you throw in that one, my friend, you then have yourself a delightful conversation at hand. Because losing means continued what? Marginalization. Money, as you see fit or as you wish, means there's a way forward. Now, so this takes center stage. So anyone who is against appears to be a forward-looking person who does not want his people to be marginalized or to lose or to be taken advantage of.
And everybody else on the other side
Clearly are not concerned about the welfare of the people, and they don't mind if people are marginalized. And remember,
because the other side also has younger senators, those who have voted for the finance committee's proposal or amendments that look like they are going with the finance
those
committee.
are
People like Susan Keheka, people like Kajwang, younger senators, the whip himself, Irungo Kangata.
You see, please remember, we're talking about politicians and a political opportunity that has presented itself. Remember, I asked the question, why haven't we had this heat before? What do you think can be more emotive than money that is supposed to go to a region? Right now, what can be more emotive? There's nothing really that I can think of.
Money on its own is emotive, just without even applying it anywhere. And then looking at then jurisdictional administration over the place that you have authority that harbors the individuals who are essentially going to vote for you in the future should you choose to throw in your hat for competition, right? So combine these two and the movers and shakers dwell right there.
You know, this is an opportunity that gives you a campaign platform without even you appearing to campaign. And yet you are in the eye of the public on a daily basis. And this one even gets better and better. With the arrest, it gets better and better and better.
You're definitely going to give it your best shot.
Already, what's happening this morning in Kakamega is that Senator Cleopas Malala's supporters have lit tires at the Mumias town, protesting and demanding his release. People are out there. We saw the same thing happening yesterday with the Dr. Langat. His supporters came.
Yes.
Right. It's really working for them.
It is.
But if we say that this power that is outside Parliament is actually the executive, right? Let's say that it's been covered before. It's the president, the prime minister who are really for the formula, or now this Senator Ware's amendment, that they are the ones who wanted to go that way. So if they're the ones, because they're the ones who have the power, they've also influenced that the police went and arrested these three senators. They have access to intelligence. They have
Eric,
enough political knowledge and wisdom to know what will happen.
There was a
Arrest these guys, take them. This is what's going to happen in Mumias the following day.
There was a stalemate. There's a stalemate in the Senate yesterday, 22-22. Why aren't the other 22 people being arrested? Why these three? Why?
Ili iwe funzo. Starts like that.
What is it about these three
Send a message
that makes them most culpable?
Send
All
a
I'm
message.
saying is...
One, also they come from far-flung areas, so you arrest them in Nairobi, take one to... You have ensured that this person is not going to be... You see, you arrest Senator Sakaja. His lawyer can come to court.
Very fast. He's
Stuart
back on the floor.
Matzayo, which side of the divide has he been voting for?
He is the no.
Where does he come from?
Kilifi. Could have been taken to Malindi courts.
Well, I
Get
think
your point.
you get my point?
Yeah.
It's an opportunity. It has been taken. And Like with even previous cases, one of the things that made the people who were opposed, for instance, to the Moi government, what made them even better known were the arrests. You incarcerate someone in this country, another truth, you actually get them to be more popular.
They become a hero.
You're giving them something.
They become a
yes,
hero.
you have.
That's why I'm
Absolutely.
asking. So
And
why
it has
would
always
the
been.
system do that?
It has always been the case. I mean, even from times of around independence and the clamor for people who were arrested or taken into custody, once they came out, they became heroes.
Not only that,
Harry Thuku, such people became heroes.
people
just
who,
because
people
of
who worked
that.
behind the scenes,
Yeah.
who did some fairly heavy lifting behind the scenes, were not even known.
Didn't even know who they were really.
It's the guys who had been given that scholarship by the colonial government to sit in Manyani or to sit in whichever prison that the Garbatula, wherever they had been taken. Those are people who got known. So history shows you clearly that when the government of the day seems to oppose you, or when the government of the day seems to be leaning in the direction of something that doesn't seem popular with some people or is made to be unpopular, then any attempt to incarcerate or to actually incarcerate an individual who seems to be against what seems to be or appears to be the government position, that person simply gains in popularity.
That's it. So that's what's happening here.
If you thought that we were putting them down, what have you done is that you've elevated their heroism.
All right. Time to take a break at 27 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is a Situation Room on Spice FM and KT and Home as well as online. We want to take a break and we'll be back shortly and we'll be asking the question, is the Senate under siege? We'll be taking your calls shortly. 0719-012-600.
Spice FM, Malindi. The weather with Spice
Mostly
FM.
cloudy in Nairobi at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 today. The high in Nyeri today will be 22. Cloudy conditions all through the morning. Taking a look then into Nakuru, where highs of 23. We'll see rain showers later on. In Eldoret, it's mostly cloudy at 14 degrees. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 19 and lows of 12. In Kisumu, cloudy conditions this morning, currently at 21 degrees. Highs of 27 and lows of 19. In Kakamega, we'll see highs of 24 with rain showers later. In Malindi, mostly cloudy conditions at 26, and the rain has started coming down. It's likely to remain that way for most of the day with highs of 28. In Mombasa, it is mostly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 23. In Kakamega today, 18 degrees and mostly cloudy. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 16 with a chance of a sprinkle in the afternoon. All right, in Kampala, it's 20 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 19. And in Dar es Salaam, cloudy conditions and now being replaced by patches of fog. Sprinkles will come back later with highs of 28 and lows of 21. It's a rather chilly day in Joburg. It's mostly sunny, though, even with chill. At 9 degrees, we'll see highs of 15 and lows of -1. And finally, for now, in Lagos, it's partly cloudy at 24, and the rains are beckoning with highs of 30 and lows of 23.
Chilled Spice.
All right, let's look at the roads right now and see what may have changed or gotten better. On Mombasa Road, it's not too crazy today. It's looking like we're going to have a good week, guys, unless something does happen a bit crazy. We have the bumper-to-bumper situation on Uhuru Highway. That's between Nyayo Stadium and Westlands all the way through. But it's normal for this time. We'll soon be out of traffic hour in about 45 minutes or so, what we expect to be fast-moving traffic. Eastern and Southern Bypass is behaving beautifully this morning. Coming down from Langata Road, then towards the Timor roundabout, and then either to Mpagathi Way or then towards Nyayo Stadium, you should be absolutely fine. Out of the Pangani Underpass, however, on Thika Road, getting to the Globe Cinema roundabout, it's a bit slow. But you'll be fine, guys, I promise. I promise. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
8:30, the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. This conversation continues. Is the Senate under siege? What's happening in Mumias this morning as we speak right now is that Senator Malala's supporters have converged, poured out in the streets of Mumias. They've lit fires on the roads, lit tires. and they are protesting the arrest, especially the manner in which their senator,
Note,
their
they're
beloved senator, was
Peaceful protest.
Yeah, they're just
It's
like,
the tire that's suffering.
it's just
but
lighting
but
tires
by and large,
and
the
blocking
protest-
roads, and people who want to use that road cannot use the
You
road
know, I always wonder,
because that's a peaceful
where
protest.
do people get these stones and tires from?
It's like
One-
a storage. It's just like in your handbag.
Yes,
You have a
you drive
tissue.
along those roads in India the other day and you don't even see stones, you don't see tires. Then an issue like this arises and all of a sudden tires are strewn all over the road. There are stones there, and you wonder, where do people get these things from?
It's like the hawkers with the umbrellas. You didn't expect it to rain, and then suddenly people are selling umbrellas. Where did it come from, right?
Actually,
it's the same process.
There's an even more, no, the umbrella fellow you can even understand.
It's stored somewhere.
No, you stop your car somewhere and somebody in some really oily garment comes along with one spanner and asks you if your car is okay.
Boss, gari yako iko sawa?
Iko sawa, huh? Radiator iko sawa.
Inasikiaje? It's like ilikuwa inakohoa asubuhi. Really? So this is what's happening this morning in Mumias, because they're protesting that, and that's what we're discussing this morning. The arrest of these three senators, what we saw unfolding in the Senate yesterday, what we had seen unfolding in the Senate in the previous weeks. There's this whole clamor for one stand against other stands. How many amendments have been tabled in that house on this one formula? How many amendments have been, and all these amendments are to the original formula by the Finance Committee, which was its own report, which wrote its own formula, which is not what the CRA had presented to the Senate on February 30th last year. So we are seeing amendments, plus amendment, plus an amendment to the amendment. There was an amendment to Sakaja's amendment, which was another amendment to some...
And Linturi's amendment to that.
All these amendments, and people digging in and staying their ground and trying to get in their numbers and saying, you know what, we've got the numbers. And they had the numbers. And that's why these three had to be removed, so that we reduce the numbers by 3. Lo and behold, the Senate Speaker says, okay, so, the Constitution reads the Constitution. Now, standing orders reads standing orders. For that reason, those 3 senators, and the way they have written to the Speaker, saying that they have withdrawn giving the authority to vote to the members of the delegation, that decision stands. So those 3 votes will not count in any way. There's nobody who's going to cast those 3 votes. That tilted things.
There's a bit that you added. There was the thought of asking the nominated senators from that particular region. Comply. That was an interesting one.
You know what happens, and this is the thing. So if we have, for example, Nairobi, the elected senator is Johnson Sakaja. Then we have other nominated senators from various political parties.
Nominated.
But they voted in Nairobi. Now, simply because Beth Mugo voted in Nairobi, she belongs to the Nairobi delegation. Simply because Mama Miradi voted in Nairobi, she also belongs to the Nairobi delegation. Now, Johnson Sakaja is the head of that delegation. He can write, and he actually is supposed to write at the beginning of a session and say, in my absence, so-and-so is the deputy. The other person who would vote would be this, and the other, in my absence. Also, he can write, like these 3 senators did. They wrote and said, in my absence, no one votes.
They had previously done this.
In my absence, nobody votes. So it's only I who can cast a vote for Kakamega County. It's only I who can cast a vote for Samburu, for Bomet. So you don't have those 3 votes. It changes everything. The assumption had been that, with this one's gone, the other members of the delegation will come in.
Vote on their behalf.
You see, 2 of the senators...
Karata.
Yes, 2 of the 3 senators belong to Jubilee. 1 belongs to ANC. You see, it made me think of something, that opposition doesn't necessarily mean a political party whose particular position may differ with that of the government. No. It's simply someone whose thinking process and whose ideas differ. That's it. That's where the real opposition is. And now, if we were to focus on 2022, and you can see the direction that this particular debate is taking, we may get to 10th, we may get to 12th. Remember? And then there'll be the governors telling you, we can't run our business because the Senate has done its thing. Okay? what is happening that may not be clear is that the dynamics of our politics is also beginning to shift. Not change, I'm just talking about shift. When people start thinking in a way that you didn't anticipate they would think, or they don't go by the script that you assumed they would go, and they seem, with every passing day, their position isn't weakening, it's actually getting stronger. What is likely to happen is that they are more likely to get more support. Because there's also a likelihood that there are people who think like them but just hadn't stood out. But whether this is just conjecture on my part, when the next meet, we'll be able to see the proof of this particular pudding.
It'll be interesting to know. I'm just looking forward because, I mean, likely to happen again next Monday, right? When they convene to have this discussion all over again and to hope that there will be white smoke then next week. It will be interesting to see whether the positions that they remain hard and fast at those particular positions, or if anything is then going to change, or what possibly could be the drama on Sunday night that could then bring out something on Monday that could skirt this whole process once again.
Yeah.
But there's a conversation that's being had in the shadows right now. And those who don't have the might or the platform upon which to share those sentiments, such as that the senators had. And that's the fact that what kind of democracy, essentially, then, is being scuttled or then being overshadowed by then using any kind of executive might at whatever level to stop things from playing out in a way in which they naturally or democratically would. All of this, again, conjecture, and asking yourself the question, if the powers that be actually then used their might to move these three gentlemen away from the House of the Senate, what does then actually mean when it comes to agitation and democratic debate and things like that?
And the independence.
And the independence of this particular body. It sounds like something you want to laugh off, but it's an important conversation to have, because it means that if that actually did happen, the truth that lies underneath all of this is that it could happen at any time with anybody over anything. That can the powers that be use their might to mold things in a certain direction? We would have been having a totally different conversation yesterday if these three gentlemen were actually on the floor of the Senate.
The catalyzing effect of everything that we're talking about here is what actually concerns me. These things never begin in any huge, it's in an innocuous way. Just look at the progression of the multi-party debate in this country and how it began and how it progressed and when it caught momentum and when other players now sort of like got into that bandwagon and it was furthered. And then even with it, now came the differences that arose, the many parties that arose. This process, there are things you may think you understand it, you can control. But there's a point at which this thing seems to just gather life of its own. And it moves. But it will also tell you the direction in which, not just the politicians, but the direction in which the citizenry think. Because remember, if you're a senator and you've been a two-term senator, what job do you really want in the future? Governor. If this debate was about governors, you would ask, what would the governor want? And what would the governor's position, the BBI, especially with the referendum? Then you'd suddenly realize there's this small matter of deputy president, deputy prime minister. So there are positions to be had beyond being governor.
So you're playing to the gallery so that you can show the people that I'm with you. But also, remember, you've got also to watch over your back. You also need to ensure that the powers that be also support you. I'm looking at, for example, the leadership of the House, right? This is mainly a Jubilee and ODM affair in this House. And then we have got now the other parties. We have KANU, we have Ford Kenya in this party, we have ANC. Now, if you look at the NASA coalition in the House, the leadership of NASA, James Orengo, we can say, represents the wishes of the leadership. And that's why he's been steadfast on his stand. Let's pass it. Let's find consensus, but let's pass what was presented by Senator Kibiru in the Finance Committee. However, his deputy, Cleopa Malala, is this one, who was arrested the other day because he's on the opposite side. There are several members on that side of the aisle who are completely on the opposite side of what James Orengo is standing for. Ledama Olekina and the others, people like the Kisii Senator Okongo Omogeni, Nyamira Senator rather, Okongo Omogeni, the Kisii Senator, Mzee Professor Samongeri is...
Remember
on the other side.
what
Then on
yes.
the other side of Jubilee, so you can see the Jubilee leadership, the new Jubilee leadership of the Pogisio and the Whip, they're on one side. And then there are these other younger ones, the Jubilee people who are not necessarily Tanga, people like Sakaja, not necessarily Tanga, but look at where he stands. Look at the Whip on the minority. This is Mutula Kilonzo Jr. This is completely mixed up, man. We don't even know the shape of this house.
Oh, no.
Where's the leadership of this house?
Oh, actually, there is leadership. When we have a norm that doesn't allow for divergence of views, then this debate becomes a very heated debate.
It does.
If the norm was people differ and people have different views, even within party structures, and that they can hash these things before they actually come to the floor of the Senate, then we would be having no debate here. But clearly, certain things may not have taken place in the manner that people had agreed at a certain point. Because when I read, what I hear is that, why are we being pushed? It's not, why are we being convinced?
Yeah.
It's, why are we being pushed?
Why are we being forced?
Why are we forced
it's
to
being
make a
ramrodded down our
particular,
throats? Why?
to make a particular decision? And it could be dissent to that forcefulness that's coming, not necessarily the principle.
So it's these .coms that are just being
that's
defiant.
making noise for nothing. Meanwhile, if maybe they stepped away from the noise making, they can actually see that there's merit in what we're suggesting. But that's the thing, it's defiance to the idea as opposed to the principle. That somebody is forcing you to make a decision is likely what you would be more defiant about as opposed to what they're actually saying.
Listen to this statement by Professor Kithure Kindiki. The Parliament of Kenya must face the executive head-on. Parliament must face the judiciary head-on. And there is no way we are going to entertain any arm of government to run this institution. We will not allow us. Arrest us, kill us, torture us. We will not yield by fire or force. What is Kithure Kindiki here saying? Kithure Kindiki here is pointing fingers outside beyond the institution of the legislature and going to the executive and just, for good measure, pointing at the judiciary. But his main finger is at the executive and saying the executive has come into this house and is trying to control this house. And that's why we're saying Senate under siege. He knows all too well. Just a couple of months ago, he was the deputy speaker. And word came from elsewhere, and he's no longer the deputy speaker of this particular Senate.
So are you saying that he has an axe to grind?
Oh,
A big one.
An
And it has born children.
What
The
do they
axe has
say?
born children.
If a snake bites you, you see a stick, you jump. He has been bitten by a snake.
So no more rattling. He has actually been bitten.
My friend, this one has been bitten by a snake. Okay? Maybe he has even been amputated. So he sees a stick like this, nyoka. This is it.
For someone who was recently in the position that he was in, one could argue that we are hearing and listening to the expression of sour grapes. Yeah. Because I would ask the question, if he was still in the position that he was in, would he have expressed the same sentiments?
Maybe.
True. Maybe, but true. Maybe not. You see, anytime you have a political process unfolding and it's new, man, the nuances around it are as plentiful as the voices.
Yeah.
But what is for sure, the discussion around this division of spoils, somewhere along the line actually got lost.
That's what I'm saying.
A new narrative took
We
over.
stopped talking about third basis and CRA and allocation. We stopped talking about that a long time ago. And that's what I was saying. The principle or the idea upon which all of this has come about was lost a while ago. It was lost. And that's why you see other things playing out here. And we have to be tuned to that reality that, you know what? The drama that's unfolding here really has nothing to do with the allocation of funds to the counties.
No, it's never had, actually.
That idea on its own got lost. So what is really playing out here? Because if it was just that, come on, guys, how difficult would it be to decide now and say, all right, let's just share this thing and move on, right? We've got work to do. But this is clear what's happening here. And then you, who is watching it play out, can then make decisions about individuals who will come and stand in the future.
What even tars this thing, much as the sentiments which are being expressed sound good, and they're good for purposes of discussion and for the expansion of our democracy, Unfortunately, the houses that we speak of, National Assembly, Senate, unfortunately, they do not start with a good reputation. Senator for the longest time was considered a lame duck, toothless. Just a rubber stamp.
Nyumba ya wazee.
Yes. Where people went to retire and to doze off. Now, so the changes come about, they're not dozing off.
Now it has been, it's being occupied now by younger,
Yes,
vibrant
they've
leaders.
They have come out fighting and shouting, all right? They're almost putting to shame the National Assembly, because the National Assembly is the one who seems to be now Nyumba Wazee, where anything that goes there is just passed. Anything that goes there is just passed. Yes. No, with minimum fuss. Once in a while, you may hear a dissenting voice. Operative
that one is under siege.
Yes.
The question we were asking, we'd like to take a couple of questions, a couple of phone calls before we conclude this conversation. Is Senate under siege? Call us in now, 0719-012-600, 0719-012-600. And also you can post your comments on Spice FM KE Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or Instagram as well. This is where we're having this conversation. Is Senate under siege? Just yes or no? Yes. No? Yes?
The Senate is not under siege.
No.
I say it is. We want to take the calls. I can see Rono is calling in from... Rono, good morning.
Good morning to you, old friend.
How are you, Rono?
I'm doing good.
Where are you this morning?
You guys, I'm back in Eldoret.
You're right.
Yes.
So, Rono, is Senate under siege?
It has been all along. They just didn't know.
It wasn't obvious to them.
The siege was being carried out by somebody else.
Right.
They were just not aware.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a few days ago, you talked of some novel animal you are calling the deep state.
Yep.
Yes.
It is flexing its muscle now.
Oh, really? Okay.
and guys are waking up to the reality of its existence, you know.
Okay, so which way forward then for them?
Unfortunately, nothing good will come out of it.
Okay.
These are the same guys who have been doing this stuff day in, day out.
Thank you for your opinion, Rono. Let me now pick Jimmy Kimani, who's in Malindi. Good morning, Jimmy.
Good morning.
How are you, Jimmy? Is Senate under siege?
The Senate is under siege. The nation is under siege. The parliament is under siege.
Okay.
We are all under siege. The reason to say this is you remember very well what Junet said when he was in parliament. He said that, you know, what is happening to you now, he was telling Dwale. And the reason why they are following Baba like goats is because of such things.
It was cows, like
when
cows.
you hear that, when you hear that, people say that KRA will follow you, so you have to follow what you're being told. Why would people fear that KRA does not hurt them or does not follow them? Because these people have been doing bad things. So, let me come to the point.
Okay.
The Senate is under siege because you know, during election time, during the campaign time, Matiang'i came very clearly in Kisii, and he was saying, you know, for me, don't fear these people at the border here. You remember the Nchinkororo? You remember I was your leader? So don't fear them. These people, they cannot make you.
Okay, Jimmy,
should not make you scared.
you are coming to the point.
This is the point.
Okay.
We are under siege because ethics and anti-corruption has failed. Because before a leader is elected, what are the ethical parts of that person that is being put into power, leading people? So we have seen all these problems because there are people who are not supposed ethically to be in positions where they are. And that's why people are being under siege.
Thank you, Jimmy. John in Nyandarua, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you guys?
Very
Fine,
good.
thank you.
Yeah, very fine. It's a very, very nice debate. I want to say that the Senate is not under siege. Indeed, it is the Senate which has invited this. Because whoever watched the discussions on the floor of the Senate would have realized that the Senate has allied itself into certain groupings. This is 2022 political chopsticks on the floor of the Senate.
Okay.
So the government had to do something to ensure that whatever is sensible for the country has to be passed. And the government has to be governed all over the world. We have seen these things in America. America did it in Iraq. America did it in Libya. So government has to be governed anyway.
So this is just government being government.
Exactly.
Thank you, John.
They have to bring sanity.
Thank you. Let's hear from Jonah in Kisumu. Good morning, Jonah.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, my contribution today, I want to say that the Senate was under siege before, but right now they are trying to realize themselves. And that's why I think the executive actually fear the upcoming of the young leader.
Okay.
The likes of. So, simply the bottom line is the Senate right now is not under siege. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonah. And finally, Ed Gitonga in Nyeri.
Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Now, a monkey in the circus and a monkey in the forest is still a monkey, right?
A monkey is a monkey is a monkey.
So here's the thing. Senate is not under siege. Yeah? It's all a matter of it's a house of cards. Maybe it's still another way of trying to derail the bill again by these shenanigans. Because look at it. If for example, Clifford Mahara was arrested because of flouting COVID-19 rules, yet some weeks ago the president was addressing guys in Nairobi when opening a project, and he had already flouted COVID-19 rules. It's not about them being guilty of anything. No, it's all about maybe even them themselves. They wanted the bill delayed, and they just trying to tactics all over. Because I can't really pinpoint any parliament so far in the country that has ever had the country and the people's best interest
at heart.
It's nothing new.
So I don't think I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Thank you very much, Ed, and have a good day in Nyeri. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the kind of conversation that we have every morning on this show. This is between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. every weekday morning. We want to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home, and thank you very much for tuning in this morning from 7 a.m. to now, coming up to 9. It's about 6 minutes to 9 o'clock. This conversation, however, continues on Spice FM. If you are in Nyeri, you can catch us on 90.9, in Eldoret, 96.7, Nakuru, 96.0, 102.5 in Kisumu, Mombasa, we are on 87.9, and Malindi, 97.7. Or wherever you are, you can still just watch us online on your digital device, or your mobile devices. Social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. We live stream the show there as well. Also on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. To our audience on KTN Home, join us again tomorrow from 7. But if you're on Spice FM, keep it right here. This conversation continues. Good morning. All right, at 5 to 9, let's remind you about this portal by the Kenya Ports Authority, kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. And on this portal, you find a lot of information. This morning, we're looking at what?
We're looking at export services for CT, who is exporting or shipping a sweet treat to the UK. Okay, so CT shipping is...
Someone may assume is exporting coconuts.
Pineapple.
Okay.
What's wrong with you? So... We already have, according to Captain Cargo, we already have the Revenue Authority pass, and that's now that your stuff can leave, all right? After that, you're going to be issued with the entry and issues release, okay? Thereafter, you get the pre-advice from KPA, and you then are given the whole list of what you need to pay. I'm glad that you're writing this down, CT. And then thereafter, there's a truck that comes along and picks up what is called a position slip. Now, we're assuming that your truck already has all your graded pineapples there. Everything has been identified and it has passed inspection. And now you have this position slip and it's on its way to the ship. So Captain Cargo is about to fan this off or flag this off, as it were. And so these pineapples will soon be on their way to the UK.
All right. So this you can find all this information on kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. Okay, so we have about 3.5 minutes to the top of the hour. You said you don't think the Senate is under siege.
No. I'm going to even begin with the definition, really. There's one rare definition of the word siege. It actually refers to a group of herons, that white bird. A siege of herons.
Right.
Okay. Now, this...
Yes.
Plurality again. Okay.
Got it.
Now,
All right.
then, commonly, the word siege is used in military terms, either by police or the army. And it involves an operation that you surround a place, a town, or a dwelling, and you cut off any supplies they may require to survive, forcing them to surrender. Nothing of that sort has happened in the Senate.
You stop them from moving, or in some cases even speaking.
That hasn't happened in the Senate.
You see, when you start with one, when you start with several other senators talking about receiving threats, receiving some demand letters from the Kenya Revenue Authority, then different senators being arrested.
I have
and
to
being
ask
whisked away,
but
and so they do not appear on the floor of the Senate when they're supposed to vote.
Under the circumstances, yes, it would raise issues, but the KRA sent demand letters to people all the time. We're not all in the Senate, and at some point or the other, we receive these letters. It just means you may have forgotten to meet a certain obligation, but of significance, since we're dealing with politicians. Many politicians who are astute will understand that there's a need for you to choose a huge, big enemy that everyone knows is beyond you.
Exactly.
And you fight. Yes, and you point at them. Now, should you lose that fight, you are heralded as a brave person, someone who actually... there's no way lose for you here. Someone who can take on the establishment. If you win, of course, then you're a hero. So, right now, taking on the executive is a good game.
Even if you don't win, but you appear to have been bruised
When
by
the
their shenanigans,
executive
you
comes
still
to the
come out as
House
a
and
hero.
first of all ruffles feathers by changing the leadership, going as far as changing a deputy speaker of the Senate. And then there's a formula that's brought to the House, and there are some people who appear not to be towing the line. And then we see action being taken on them. This is siege.
No, it isn't.
This is just the beginning of a siege.
Harassment isn't
This
siege.
is it. What you're watching is the
process.
The troops basically just taking up positions. Yeah. You know, someone will say, we were supposed to be delivering cabbages into the village, but we were stopped by those soldiers and they kept us there for 5 hours, and that's why the cabbages are arriving here and they are spoiled. Beginning of a siege.
No.
Next, cabbages will not arrive.
There'll be no cabbage.
You are referring to
cabbage.
You are referring to parting shots, which is really a warning, but it's not a siege.
These are the parting shots of a siege.
A siege is when Senate had been throttled completely.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you can
what?
see
They're not able to speak.
these guys aren't speaking, they
Can't
aren't
even go
moving, there's
downtown.
nothing. And how many senators? 47. How many have voted? 47.
Oh, yeah.
Siege. As long as you don't get those numbers.
Nothing.
No siege.
Coming up to 9 o'clock, it's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. Next hour, we shift gears a little bit and ask ourselves, how did we get here? Right.
Yes, how on earth did we get here?
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay. It's looking really good on Thika Road today. We don't have too much drama. There are some 3 accidents that took place in different parts of the city, but that has not affected traffic. 1 Jogo Road, 1 Thika Road, and 1 on the Greater Mombasa Road. But it's all right. Inbound from Athi River on Mombasa Road and then all the way down towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabouts, it's been a bit cloggy here and there, but hasn't caused too much jam unless something jumps out at us at this point. But for now, honestly, traffic heard your woes the last couple of days and has been behaving very, very well. We hope it maintains that at least for the next couple of days. All right, in case something does happen, let us know. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's share.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
2.5 minutes after 9 o'clock. The conversation continues. How did we get here is what we'll be discussing in the next hour. But today's proverb.
Well, the English version we've heard, but we've had one gentleman who has very, very kindly given us a Swahili version. Ukupigao ndio ukufunzao. I think the U should have been akupigao. Ndio ukufunzao, meaning whatever it is that seems to directly translate. Mti.
Ama fimbo ikupigao.
Fimbo, yes, whatever it is that strikes you or causes you some, should we say, consternation. That's a good word. And that is what perhaps affords you the greatest lessons that you can learn. And the greatest lesson here, kufunzao, to teach you, is, I think, the equivalent of what we would call wisdom. Though the direct translation of wisdom into Kiswahili is hekima or hekma.
So this is Jeremiah Wesike who posted that on Twitter. And then Sarah Jepkemei also had a different version, sort of similar, but kind of different. Ukuunguzao ndio ukufunzao.
See?
I would assume ukuunguzao here means mortal.
Yes.
Is kuunguza Kiswahili word?
Yes. It is. It is.
Umeunguzwa?
Yes, it is. Bear in mind that any
umeunguzwa na moto.
You are accustomed to the
moto
word
umekuunguza.
You use the term umechomwa. Now the word choma could mean many things. Somebody could stab you amekuchoma.
Mwiba, kudunga.
Yes, exactly. So synonyms come into play here. We know the meaning of the word, but the word we know may not be the only meaning that bears that same meaning. Yes.
Okay. So, how did we get here?
Well, if you read the paper today, with the exception of 2 things, NLC supports Ruto Hotel demolition row, joined by KCB, who funded the expansion of this particular hotel, and the hotel we're referring to is the Western Hotel. If we forget Senate under siege, which is in the Standard, if we forget Day of Terror, which is the headline in the Nation, under siege is the Standard, and if you look at the Nation publication of my government, boost to economy as Nairobi Nanyuki train rumbles back to life. The Star, Western scandal, NLC backs Ruto. This is headlines in hotel dispute. Now, what it shows us clearly is that we are not just a headline consuming nation, but we are a political agenda consuming nation. So long as a topic seems to touch on politics, we are going to lap it up. We have been discussing at length now the stalemate at the Senate. Now, the reason, before that, it was just the Senate going about its business. Then suddenly there seemed to be a division. Then political statements started being made. Then it caught the attention of the nation. The governors waded in and threw in their views of how they are suffering and they are unable to pay what their current expenses because of this. A lie, of course. The governors don't necessarily need that okay from the Senate for them to be able to function. Everything that we read about and consume, or even we discuss today, points to something that may not necessarily be healthy for us as a nation. Because we don't discuss, for instance, local inventions that have occurred with COVID, the steps that have been taken by locals to try and help show this fight against COVID. We don't talk about issues that surround women and children with regards to how they are suffering. You will never see that headline.
Nope.
We don't talk about the provision of something as basic as water, which we know is a key ingredient in the fight against COVID. We don't talk about this. We don't talk about the provision of basic necessities, even as we keep having this discussion about opening schools and ensuring that schools will be able to actually cope with learning and COVID. We don't talk about the lies that the counties have been telling with regards to their readiness for COVID and whatever surrounds it. So the big question that we have to ask when you look at all these things is, how on earth did we get here? I almost throw in an adjective or an appellative which wouldn't have been appropriate for the show, but how on God's good earth did we get here? How did we get to the point where our entire value system got so convoluted that we seem to think that all these political issues are the ones which will change our lives? They could. But our lives are going on in spite and despite what's going on, and it's not going on in the direction of good. It's actually going in the direction of not very good, or what one could call dismal. How on earth did we get here? How did we get to the point where we are satisfied with the drama that's presented to us? We happily get involved in that process, whether we are demonstrating, which is our right, whether we are issuing our opinions on social media. The question is, how does it change your reality as a citizen? The answer is very simple. It doesn't.
It really doesn't, because, I mean, just simply, if you want to look at it quite simply and say, all right, all the drama that's been fed over the last 9 weeks, for example, how has it made life better for Kenyans? How has it really contributed to your development factor as an individual, as a family, as a society, communities, etc.? How has that? And I think that has got to be the question, because you know how they say, take everything with a grain of salt. I think people have to get to the point where you see things playing out and ask yourself, how really is this going to affect the way you live life in this country? Is it going to make it any better? Has the potential to make it worse? So perhaps it's something that you actually want to stay away from. And I think, unfortunately, when the lights go on and the dazzling lights and everything is happening, we're mesmerized by it for a short time, which normally happens on any stage. But then to ask yourself further than that, why does this matter? And if we're actually able to apply that questioning to a lot of these, we'll find that they really don't. They really don't make a dent in your life when you think about it. Because I think about those who were looking for a meal yesterday while this drama was going on.
Still looking for a meal today.
Still looking for a meal
And
today.
even last week.
Those who couldn't afford to send their children to school last year, even before COVID hit or whatever, this drama that ensued yesterday didn't put an extra
In
coin
fact,
in
they're
their
guaranteed
pocket.
now they're going to be in an even more difficult situation. Yes.
When you look at the economic crisis that the country is in, and all this drama that took place and that continues to take place over the next couple of days, does it take Kenya an inch further out of this well? Does it? Does it solve the problem? Does it solve the problem of bad leadership? Does it solve the problem of ill governance? Does it solve the problem of a negative development factor? Does it solve all of those? And I think once you start to ask the questions around those, then you realize that some of the drama that we're often privy to, then it's just that. It's just drama. And we should be able to look beyond it and say, these are the real issues that are happening in this country that we need attention. And goes to say for not just Kenya, but across countries, and drama that's going on is not necessary, is not important, does not contribute in any way, shape, or form. It makes for great intermission, but then you have to get back to the meat of things and deal with that.
So how did we get here then? Because we're talking about where in order of priority, the number one priority is consuming news on politics and the political
Yes.
the intrigues
Yes.
of our political system.
Yes.
That's the number one.
Yes.
Then the other things, is there COVID? Do we need to wash our hands? Do we have water? Are we going to die? Those are
Do we
not
have food? Okay.
Then the government helps you along the way and says, actually, you're on your own, just in case.
So and then we push it up there and start looking at how the government is operating in these COVID times.
You see, the valid question that is being asked here boils down to something very simple. Government, its functions, the people who run it notwithstanding, the real government, the people who make it possible for them to be their government are the citizens. In the absence of the citizen, you have no government. There's nothing for you to do. You won't have your taxes. Everything that makes a country viable will not exist.
Yeah.
Now, the importance that should be given to the citizenry, unfortunately, is lost on the citizenry themselves. They don't even seem to think that they're important. You've been beaten down to the point where you think you are an object, more or less. You've been objectivized.
You're even asking for it.
Yes. And
That's
you
the
even
point.
think that everything that the government does for you is a favor, when it's actually their duty and their function. And that you actually pay taxes. There is no one in this country who doesn't pay taxes. And if you approximate the point where you don't pay, someone is paying on your behalf. Children don't pay taxes directly. Parents pay taxes on their behalf.
They'll get to the point where they'll.
Oh, yes, they'll get to the point. That's the whole point, that they will actually get to a point where they will contribute. Yet, we have allowed ourselves to get to the point where even our own self-interest has been submerged with these other interests, which don't really benefit us. Our own interest. Meaning, we are not even self-aware to the point where we need to have an element within us that is selfish enough to actually look after our interest.
Our own interest.
Yeah, so I think that's it. If that's the answer to the question, then there is a constant ignorance of how things really are. And that's what has gotten people to the point whereby you don't even realize what's going on. It's the constant ignorance that, all right, okay, we're not even people are not even aware of what it is that they truly need, not even aware of when they're being abused to within an inch of their life.
Yeah.
The ignorance or unawareness of what is really at the heart of the matter is what gets people to the point whereby you can be fed a lot of gobbledygook, as CT would often refer to it as, but you don't actually realize what the real situation is. That the country is falling to its knees, that people don't have the wherewithal to survive. The constant ignorance of the real issues is what gets you to the point where you can be fed a lot of nonsense and you continue to take it down without demanding the right things happening in any government.
We've surrendered our rights. I mean, we keep blaming leaders. I wouldn't
You gave
even
it
go
up.
there.
You gave it up a long
I
time
would
ago.
actually.
Please tell me why.
I'm thinking of the word demasculate. We're basically a population that is emasculated a long time ago. And I think I'd go back into the colonial era and the colonial system, where the main thing that the colonial lords wanted to do was to completely deprive you of anything, so that they make you feel that they are the alpha and omega.
Deprive you of any dignity.
Yes.
Per se.
So your entire mind is dependent on them. And then we get into independence, and the independence era leadership continued with some of those aspects of what we were seeing during colonialism. That's why we get to a point where what the leader says is what's more important than what I feel. What the leader is doing is what's more important than the hunger that I feel. You see? So it's getting to a point where we say Serikali's idea is expecting. And we were having another conversation in a certain group the other day. What is it about the voter? The voter is electing somebody in office. What is their expectation? Their expectation is not that this person is going to do things the right way so that my life can get better. Their expectation is direct. This person is going to bring me something. Is going to bring me that maendeleo. It's not maendeleo of systems working. It's maendeleo of something tangible. There's going to be a hospital here so people can get employed. There's going to be a school here so people can get it. We're going to have direct benefit accruing from my vote. And that's the same kind of mindset. That's why we are so concerned about these personalities and what they're doing.
But if you look at it, Eric, shouldn't it? That's the way it should be. It should be that when you exercise that power, because it is power in that single vote, it should be that when you exercise that power, that all of your expectations, or at least to a certain degree, should come true. because of the fact that you put your faith in this individual for whom you have voted, you see that, yes, that tangible thing will come to be. You don't expect that you put your vote, well, I hope not, that you put your vote, you exercise your vote, and then you get a shoddy display of performance.
No. You see, ideally, the expectation should be that you're electing somebody and then they go and do their job. Because the job description is very clear.
Yes,
You're just putting somebody to go and do their
these
job.
things that you expect, yeah?
Go do your job. And as long as you're doing your job,
These
then
things
things
will come
here
about.
will work.
Yeah.
The expectation of many of the Kenyan voter is, I am electing you not to go and do your job, to go and do whatever it is that you need to do to bring me something. So the job, I am not really bothered whether you're doing the job or whether you're not doing the job, as long as you're bringing me something. As long as I'm going to get up and see a road there. If you've stolen everybody else's money to come and put some 5 kilometers of tarmac
Not
here,
your problem.
not my problem. That's the expectation. And that's why I'm going back into, we were emasculated as a nation from the colonial master to that colonial system, and that colonial system has carried over up to today. We are at a point where we are so, that's why we look at people and call them, these people, we all call them Mheshimiwa. All of them, these political leaders. It's Mheshimiwa. If any of these political leaders walks in, you stop what you're doing first and you look at Mwe. We have this sense that this person is the everything.
So did the colonialists bring it upon us, or did they just carry on a system that many societies in the human nation tend to have? Did they just latch on to what existed, or did they just create it?
They didn't create it.
They didn't
This is something
create
that
it.
They had practiced where they were coming from.
Yes, but also because of what they wanted to have in the end. You see, in their strategy, they wanted control. Because they wanted control, not to come at you and give you services, or we've come to Kenya, so we're going to form a government and this government is going to work for you. No, we're coming to Kenya to control you so that we can get what we want. So they
were clear.
They tricked the system that was working in their country is not what they came and implemented here. It's different.
Eric, you know what is odd is that the system that is working in their country, one could argue, is what they came and implemented here. Because remember, if you look at many of the Western countries that were part of those who colonized this continent, they had a system which had classes. They had a class system. And these classes had roles, more or less. And there was a class whose job was to rule. Now, the people who ended up here, many of them were in that class of people who ruled, even where they came from. That's why we have the lords and we have all these lovely sounding titled people, even in the country, even as we speak. Now, these people didn't just get there in a day. Many of these titles were hereditary, meaning you had a forefather who had done certain things to either earn the title or was born into the family of those who already had the title. Okay. Now, if you look at the history of how these titles were concerned, Chief, many people died before those titles were acquired.
True.
Many
But
nations
by
were
the
plundered
time-
before those titles were
I
acquired.
posit that by the time those guys were arriving here, which is just the beginning of the previous century, by the time they were arriving here, the system in their home countries had evolved.
Oh, they had perfected it.
Where the system at that point was actually also benefiting everybody. They came here, and because they wanted to start from without any checks and balances, you see, their system back home had already introduced some checks and balances. There are things they could do, there are things they could not do. They could not sit at the footsteps of the Norfolk and shoot a human being walking around. But they come here and there are no checks and balances. They implement that. So they came and took back what their forefathers had done to gain the power.
Essentially,
And that's what they brought it.
the colonies served a singular purpose. It doesn't matter where they were. They were supposed to enrich the mother country.
Bas.
It wasn't complicated. So with that sort of philosophy, everything became not permissible and
Fair
possible.
game.
Yes, exactly. But the point I'm getting to here, that human beings are structured socially to have a certain need for dependency in and of itself is not wrong. We are wired that way. That we have a respect for authority. Again, we may not think so, but we are wired that way.
Yeah.
What the West did is they structured it in a way which was different from ours. But even our society was structured.
Yeah. We did not have dependency.
Actually, we didn't have dependency.
Not to that degree.
No. What we had was communal responsibility.
There you go.
Yes.
What we have now, and that's what I'm saying, is we've gotten to a point where we were brought up into a dependency. We depend on the political class to make all manner of decisions that affect our lives. And we have no say. We've basically abrogated every right that we have.
And is that a
given it
choice
to them.
still? Don't you think it's still a choice?
It may not have been a choice.
And now?
Even now, it's not a choice. Cultured that way. 20 minutes after 9, let's take a look at the weather and then continue this conversation.
The 80s have never sounded so good.
Okay, Nairobi, we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions. The sun is trying to peek through those clouds. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 13 today. In Nyeri, it's cloudy at 16, highs of 22 and lows of 13. The cloudy conditions are likely to continue through today. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 23 and lows of 13, with rain coming down in the afternoon. Thunderstorms are forecasted for Eldoret with highs of 19 and lows of 12. It's mostly cloudy at the moment. It's mostly sunny in Kisumu at 22. It'll change later, though, into rain showers with highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 20 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 16. Malindi, light rain showers being experienced at the moment, highs of 27 and lows of 24, and that rain is likely to continue throughout the day. It's mostly cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 28 and lows of 23. And in Kakamega, mostly cloudy at 20 with highs of 24 and lows of 16. Kampala is mostly cloudy at 21 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 19 with partly cloudy conditions. It's patches of fog in Dar es Salaam, and it's going into rain showers later with highs of 27 and lows of 21. It's warming up ever so slightly in Johannesburg as well, now at 10 degrees, highs of 16 with a chance of rain later and going down below freezing later to -2. Lagos is mostly sunny at 24, a sprinkle expected later with highs of 30 and lows of 23. Looking into Paris, where it's sunny conditions at 17 degrees, going into thunderstorms later with a warning of yellow, highs of 27 and lows of 16. It's mostly sunny in London at 17 degrees. It'll be a rainy day there as well with highs of 23 and lows of 16. And finally, getting into Tuesday morning in New York, it's 22 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 20.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
So you were asking
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
To remain, because I hear you saying that, I understand the emasculation and all of this, but then to remain in this state of mental slavery, which is what you're essentially saying this is, that you're in this state of dependency, to me looks like a choice. To me looks like something that you can say, well, you can continue to make the decision to be equally dependent on this individual, or you can decide that this is not something that you're going to continue doing.
There are choices that you make.
The choices which are made for you, and you comply.
Or there are choices that you actually do not even realize that you're making the wrong choice.
So then when you realize that you're making that wrong choice?
Now that's the point.
Okay, now this is where we as the media come in, because somewhere along the line you could ask the question, how did we get here? Because one of the roles that we have is to educate. How then did we subjugate this particular role to the education sector that appears once a week in the papers, to actually educating people even in the political system and the political situation that we have in the country? Case in point, we have on my Gov the Boost to Economy as Nairobi Nanyuki train rumbles. This train was built for a purpose. When it was built, that purpose doesn't really change. Okay, railways don't change in terms of purpose. But then we have another railway with the SGR. As originally planned, an excellent idea. But why don't we take, for instance, and give it a pivotal point where we discuss the ramifications of the SGR? Because when you talk about job losses, you just think jobs were lost. But what about the catalytic effect of those job losses? What about the families that are attached to these people? What happens to their jobs? What happens to their livelihood? It's like an entire economy within the county suddenly just got shunted aside. It isn't the only case. Every time you have something that happens, why is it that how did you get to the point where we mention it in one article, then we leave it? Why don't we highlight it and educate the people as the ramifications of these things? The railway passes through Savo National Park. It's mentioned once or twice, you forget about it. And you ask, but did it have to pass through the national park? Did it have to? Couldn't it have gone elsewhere? Was there no land where it could have passed through? And when it passes through the national park, what are the effects? What are the catalytic effects that it's likely to have? These are questions that you must ask. We now want to build another bypass, which is going to cost God knows how many billions. I think the plan is a good one, but in terms of priority, is that the priority now? These are questions that we must raise continuously and give prominence. The politicians will do what they do, and we must do what we must do. Talk about what politicians do, but talk about the other things that affect the lives of people even more.
There
than what
goes the other
politicians do.
conversation, CT. It's not just the media. Even the people themselves must be willing to consume this information. Because the argument that you'll hear many, many times from people who worked in the media for many years is whenever we change a headline, we see what happens in terms of the circulation, in terms of the feedback that we get. And then you move, you're not in media, you're just going around the country and you sit somewhere at a shopping center and listen to the conversations that people are having. You go and introduce yourself, I'm from Muhoroni. The second thing that people start thinking, Muhoroni, Ochilo Ayako.
And you tell them Ochilo Ayako comes from Migori.
You know, start thinking of who
shaped this?
Who's the
thinking?
politician?
Who shaped this thinking? Us. We did.
As the media.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We contributed significantly.
Of course, we contributed to it, but also the audience consume it.
Eric, you know we can.
And then the
less
audience start demanding it. So we are at that point where. So who starts now?
Your
who
point,
starts
you
changing
actually
this
get
narrative?
your point. I actually get your point, and you're more or less what you're saying. I understand. I was simply trying to point to the fact that if you're talking about how we got here, if we're asking that question, we must ask it of everybody. That's really that was my point.
Good point. Yes.
Yes, we don't leave anybody out.
Because even if it's even if it's being given to you, it's fed to you, right? You still have the responsibility whereby you gobble it up, or you choose not to.
And also,
Again,
there's a
coming to the
history
choice
to
whereby,
that.
whereby you decide that you will actually take this which is being fed to you, or you choose
You want something else.
You want something else,
And those-
or at the very least, you choose to ask what the ingredients of this thing that is being given to you are.
And those, that is, we're talking generational issues here, right? Because over the years, the owners of media were government.
Yes.
So it's government that was giving you the information that it thought it was going to work in its favor.
Or what they wanted you to know.
Of course.
Yeah.
Information that was going to work in its favor. So if the media was spewing out information that was completely skewed towards making people follow a certain direction. Owners of government in colonial times, owner of government post-colonial times, the very many years of VOK and into KBC, owners of government post, right? And the political influence that they have and what they want. So it continues that way. So to a point where we're talking about generations that have grown up, and this is how they know news to be. This is what you expect news to be. If we don't have something like national political leadership on the headline, I'm wondering, so how is this a story? If this was a headline, top 10 African ideas for tackling COVID-19, I'd be like, hakuna news leo.
And that is what you are describing, something that in psychology they call conditioning. You've been moved to a point where you more or less even expect and anticipate, and when you don't, you wonder what went wrong. Remember, someone who is genuinely hungry will eat whatever they are given on that plate.
Absolutely.
Now, we, the media, unfortunately, provide the food to hungry people. Ask yourself, what does a human being need on a daily basis? Food is essential, but there are the things that a human being needs. Now, the other need we cater for. The other things they need to consume. And we don't just cater, we even direct and determine what it is they should consume. We even we even determine the direction that what needs to be consumed should be taken. When you consider the importance that we place on these other things, yes, the consumer needs to determine. But let me ask the question. If, for instance, you come from a community that has never seen fish, you will liken it to what you know next, a snake. So the likelihood of eating a snake for you will be
very
out
high.
of the question. There are communities which for the longest time did not eat chicken. As far as they're concerned, it was a bird. And those are things that only children eat. Okay? And they wouldn't touch it. There are people who to date, they may have traveled around the world. If you give them a lobster or a crab, they will sit up and ask you why it is you're insulting them.
Where's the food?
Well, they will understand. They'll say, look, why have you chosen to give me these creatures to eat? Things which you know very well we don't eat. And it isn't that he has anything against lobsters. It's just that there's nothing in his socialization, and even if he has seen them before, that is going to convince him. But should that person be hungry enough? And you tell him what to do, they will eat that lobster. They'll eat that crab. Why do you think, for instance, a country like China, you find people eating snakes happily? Who invented the eating of snails and slugs and even gave it a name, escargot? How do you think they arrived at that? Some people even eat horses, and it's considered to be a delicacy. Yes. How do you think they got there? If you look at the histories, somewhere along the line, something happened in that country, and what they were accustomed to eating stopped being available. So you eat what's available. As long as it isn't going to kill you, you eat it. Yes. And over time, you figure, well, this is lovely cuisine. We still have the luxury of being choosy because many of the things we've been accustomed to eating, we still eat.
They're still available.
Yes. These terrible famines that we read about, like the one China experienced and so forth, we read about. We have actually never encountered it. Where people get to eating earth, raw mud earth, eating. People go to trees to eat the bark of trees, eating. Because that's what you need to eat to survive. We haven't gotten there. But in terms of our well-being and a holistic approach to it,
heading there.
our people are very hungry, and we're putting them on a wrong diet.
All right, 28 minutes to 10 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. How did we get here? Let's first take a look at how did you get where you are, stuck on the road.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Traffic.
Okay, just when we thought that everything was going to be fine, unfortunately, there's a fire outbreak in Kangemi Estate, and a number of emergency vehicles making their way in that direction. So that is affecting traffic in that area. On Wayaki way up there, this is where we see that particular problem. So it's affecting traffic that's getting into the city coming from Westlands. Just in case you're approach with caution, please, because there's heightened traffic there because of the fire that is currently taking place now. Other parts of the city were not causing too much of drama this morning, coming off Mombasa Road, Thika Road, and then into the city centre and out. Interestingly enough, in and out of both southern and eastern bypasses, you can use with relative ease this morning. So traffic is good. Apart from that, please be careful, guys, even when it is good, so you don't get into any unavoidable.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
26
94.4.
minutes to 10 o'clock. So we were asking, how did we get here? 0719-012-600. Brian in Nairobi. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
We're fine, thank you.
CT.
Hi.
I have a proverb for you.
Please.
It is much easier to pull a chain than it is to... it's much easier to drag a chain than it is to push it. Yeah?
True.
You get my point.
Yes, I need to get the chain first, but you have a very valid point, yes.
It is much easier to drag a chain than it is to push it.
I agree completely.
So if you continue to swim upstream, you will never get anywhere. Yeah?
Yes.
All right. Now, the point I wanted to make today is not necessarily relative to your topic today.
Yes.
But I wanted to say, in Kenya we have a serious dilemma. Yeah? And in my opinion, that dilemma is that...
Brian, we are losing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
That's better.
Okay. the dilemma that we have is like we have Thika Highway, we have all the bypasses and everything, but we have no toll roads. No one pays for actually using those roads. Yeah?
We pay when we fuel.
Well, you pay through taxes.
And the road maintenance levy.
Yes, exactly.
You're talking about direct payment.
Exactly. Yeah? Where I grew up in New Jersey and New York State, yeah? Each road had, if you wanted to cross a bridge, you had to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah? If you wanted to travel on the New Jersey Turnpike, you had to pay. Yeah? If you wanted to travel on the Parkway, you had to pay. Yeah? So the point I would make, and I know, Sasa Mimi, I've been in this country 20 plus years, yeah?
Yes.
I know how money evaporates like a puddle, yeah? But the point is, we still need to be responsible as citizens to make sure that we pay for what we have, we pay for improvements. Am I correct or not correct?
You're correct.
You have a valid point.
You know? We cannot take things for granted and then point fingers at the government all the time, yeah? This would be my point.
So personal responsibility.
And personal choices.
We do have a response, yes. And then even when you go to these toll booths, yeah, public transportation has its own lane whereby the public transportation, say a matatu or whatever, can pass through without paying, yeah? Because they're supposed to have their own levy. There's supposed to be some sort of, if you're on the road or you have a license to be a matatu, you pay something, yeah? But they don't go through the toll booths. It's only the personal cars, yeah? So my point is, you know, sometimes we blame the government for a lot, and I'm not saying that they're not responsible for their own activities, yeah? But we also have a duty, yeah?
Okay.
This would be my point.
Thank you very much, Brian.
I hope I hope we get control of the situation very soon because our children are suffering, yeah?
Yep, that's true.
That is the biggest issue that I have at the moment. I protect myself, I protect you, but our children are suffering, yeah?
Thank you, Brian. 0719-012-600. What's your view? How did we get here? And how we what is here, city? Just to put it into perspective. How did we get where?
Here is everything we keep talking about in this radio station on a daily basis. If you're talking about the political perspectives that are now playing out within the Senate, if we talk about SGR, if we talk about COVID and the way it's being managed by the Ministry of Health, if we talk about KEMSA, anything you want to talk about, how on earth did we get here? Here is an organization whose job is simply to source medical supplies for the government of Kenya. Source. And they have the resources to do so. And then the stories that come out of that simple reason, you wonder, God, what on earth? You see, medical supplies relate directly to either life or death situations. Now, when you have a situation where the people in charge don't seem to be aware of this, their focus seems to be on the bottom line. How much money do I stand to make?
Yeah.
Where do you think you're going to spend that money?
True. Take a pause. You know, we talk about Brians all the time. We have very many Brians in Spice.
We do.
We've just been talking to one Brian in Nairobi. Let's talk to another Brian in Nakuru.
These guys are infiltrating the world.
No, we need to ask when they were born.
What is this about
Brian?
Brian?
It must have been raining Brian at a certain point in time.
Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Okay, the brands are here. We are the Young Brand Association.
All right.
Wow, okay. And you're the president?
Thank you.
And you are taking over.
Okay.
Okay, I want to tell you something.
Tell me.
As long as you've lived in Kenya and you stay in Kenya, you'll never get something in us. We have that something in us that a software just pre-installed app in us that nobody who stays in Kenya can get it. Okay, we might want reform. Kenyans are so funny people. We plant maize and expect to harvest watermelon or pineapples. So this is the guy who is the same person who is electing the person who stole. He has a scandal. You hire the person, his bad history, his bad track record. Go there, still in the ballot, you are the same people who are putting him there, and then you're expecting pineapples.
All right.
My friend.
Okay, Brian.
Brian, we hear you. Let me pick other callers. Alan is on the line, but Vicky is here first. Vicky in Eldoret, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Vicky.
How do you do?
How do you do?
You know, this topic is a very interesting one. And I think there is one scholar which once said that a man is a politician in nature. Meaning that everything that people see mostly in developing countries like Kenya, everything is politicized. Such that in everything that the government is doing is that the politicians are the far front. And you find out that many people are employed. So the only thing that they do is like to psycho-fund the politicians. Take an example like what was happening yesterday in the Senate.
Yeah.
That something is very, very important to share resources to the county governments and to also as well people.
Yep.
But you find that politicians are seeing them in the angels that after this, what will I get in 2022 elections, maybe? And we Kenyans, we don't see that one. We only own to anapigwa, something like that. So you find out that ni mzunguko tu, and at the end of it, the politicians are not fulfilling the promise that they made during the election.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Alan, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
Hi, sweetie.
Clearly, I get the impression that your speech is heavily influenced by, say, your mother tongue, so I will accept it. Yes, thank you.
And you know, it's not gobbledygook. It's gobbledygook.
I love it.
But that's beside the point. My guys.
Yeah. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm all right, old chap.
Yes.
What we are in is in a moral recession.
Yes.
With a moral recession, and the problem with unlike, you know, when you have an economic recession, you can tweak those tools, quantitative easing, expansionary spending, you know. But when you are in a moral recession, it's crazy, because what you are seeing yesterday, those guys they were talking at the Senate, you would think that what they are talking there matters so much to the rest of us.
Yeah.
These are just self-absorbed people. Plus you guys, I believe I'm also among you, Nairobi's commentariat, this tiny exclusive priesthood of commentariats. You are insisting that forget about what newspapers say. Nobody reads them. What struck me this week is that I went to visit some poor relatives of mine who live in a place called Gitaduru in Madare. It's a family of 6, and they are receiving 6,000 shillings every week. One comes from the government, is on your phone. The other one comes from COVID-19. The other one is called Give Directly, right?
6,000 in a week.
If you tell them, in a week, if you tell them this thing is going to, COVID is going to end,
and the money will dry up.
The money. What this country needs, my guys, we must craft from the middle class a critical mass of civic mandate Kenyans.
All right.
So that we can deal with what CT is saying. We can deal with issues that matter, that affect our lives.
Good point, Alan.
These guys are fighting over this money, and money to do what? Money to steal.
Money to eat.
Today they are saying share this, they are share. Nobody is bothering where that money goes. The biggest issue today should be cancer.
Yeah.
They are busy
Alan, thank you
telling us
very
about
much for
money
your point.
should govern us with steal.
Made the point, Alan. Let me pick Amani, who's calling from Nairobi. Amani, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. How are you guys?
We're fine,
Fine, thank you.
Long time.
It has been a while.
Yeah, but I listen to you all the time. I don't call in, but I listen to you guys all the time. You're pretty good.
That's reassuring. Thank you.
Okay. Now, my contribution to this is that if we would all just implement Chapter 6 of the Constitution, a lot of this stuff would not be happening. If you look at especially Article 73, Clause 2, the guiding principles of leadership and integrity include personal integrity, competence, suitability, objectivity and impartiality in decision making, selfless service, honesty, accountability, discipline. These things are moral values which Kenyans have to abide by, not just the politicians, even us. We choose the right people.
Yep.
And the people we choose should do the right thing. And so Chapter 6 actually encapsulates what is required for us to have a good country, things that work, development that takes place for all people and not skewed because you're politically correct or you're my tribesman. A lot of this stuff would just end. I mean, Kenyans, when they conceived this constitution, understood that.
So what
And that's why
needs
they
to
put Chapter
change?
6 in.
What needs to change, Amani, for people to see, and then so this ends?
Our mindset must change. The media must keep throwing it at us day and night. You guys, this is what it takes. Anything else will not work. Break it down. Give it to us until we want to vomit. You know, like Coke. Coke is always in your face.
Yep.
All right?
Yep.
You may not be drinking Coke, but when you think of a drink, you think of Coke. Yeah. So when you keep telling us these things all the time, when we're trying to do something wrong, we think, oh my gosh, no. Somebody told us that. No. Let's go this way.
Okay.
This is what Coke does.
Yeah.
It's always in your mind.
Thank you.
It pushes that agenda. So please, media, keep pushing it. Parents, do the same with your children. Yeah. So that's it's grassroots level.
Okay.
So that when you're growing up and becoming an adult, you already have it within you.
Thank
It's
you,
not something
Amani.
strange. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Have
Amani.
a good day. Roderick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Roderick.
It's been a long time, guys,
It has.
but I listen to you guys.
Are you well?
I'm well, trying to survive under these strange times. This country is at the dogs, but I fear Kenyans, maybe these politicians have even stolen the dogs. But I'm just saying this. The thing is this. We need, as a people, we are the one to blame. We need us as a people to wake up and change this country. Let's not cry about the politicians, what they are doing. We voted for them. Let's carry our crosses. We put this country at where it is, where the country is right now. It's us, the people who have put it there. So, actually, we need to find a person, a correct person, who can come and take the leadership of this country and bring it back to its ways, to its good ways. But us as a people, we are to blame. To blame Salaborito.
Asante sana.
Simple.
Thank you very much, Roderick. Basically, what we are talking about is let's just play that song by Bob Marley then. And that's it. Redemption song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
That's what it is.
Because whilst others might free the body, none but ourselves can free the mind. The mind is your only ruler, sovereign. The man who is not able to develop and use his mind is bound to be the slave of the other person who uses their mind.
You know, there's a school of thought that believes that this particular being we keep referring to as a deep state will not allow you to do that.
They know the potential of power that you have if you do.
There's always some scheme in place that guarantees that your thinking is actually shepherded in the direction they want it to be shepherded. Whether by using economic tools, the example they like giving is the West. See, the Chinese example is perhaps a little more direct. They tell you what to do and your job is to do it. So Russia, same, they don't really complicate it very much. But in the West, what they do is they afford you things consumer durables, consumer goods. They make it easy for you to buy a house, to buy a car. The sort of things that people associate with good living. It is made possible, and it is made possible in a not too difficult way. And then while you're at it, they also throw in something that can keep you busy at home. So there's no point at which they are not influencing you in one way or the other. Whether it is sports, whether it is movies, but they occupy you. And then there's an entire industry that supports it. Now, we seem to have gone the other way. We are stealing the living daylights out of our people's resources, and we continuously do so. And our distraction is words. And putting ourselves in position where we present ourselves as representatives of the best interests of our people. So that anytime something touches upon us, it is our people's interests that are being touched.
And we define our people now coming down to tribe, to clan.
Precisely. This isn't thinking that is strange, by the way. If you look at the thinking and the philosophy behind, say, something like the Communist Party, it was the same. The party was Baba na Mama, but it was the party. So anything that you did, which was perhaps considered anti the party, was anti the people, because the people were the party. It's not very different thinking, but it all boils down to you getting to a point where you are conditioned to the point where you are no longer selfish enough to actually ask yourself, what really is in my personal interest?
Bottom line.
You don't
Lynette,
even ask that question.
Lynette,
Yes.
good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, sweetie. Morning, Eric, and morning, Do.
Good morning.
Did you say sweetie?
Just two thoughts. First, I think Kenyans love pain.
Love
Because
pain.
we keep saying this. Yes, we keep saying that it's our fault, it's the voters' fault. We blame our leaders, and we go right back and bring them back in. So I don't know. We need to get some emancipation of this, and so I'd support what Siti said earlier. There's a big role that the media has to play in educating the masses, and shift away from the sensational news, which is all dramatic, and educate the people about the politics and how it is hurting us. So I think there's really an onus on the media to take that up. And Kenyans, we need to stop loving pain.
We need to get to that point where we stop loving pain.
Yes.
We need to going.
We need to want the best for ourselves. We settle for mediocrity. I mean, look all around us. We settle for mediocrity.
You know, Lynette, every time this conversation is had in several quarters, you'll hear people saying the same. People are of the same mind. We need to move away from this.
But then what do we do?
How? How is where the problem comes. How do we do this, Lynette?
I think largely many of us are thinking if it's not me today, tomorrow it might be me getting all these monies and getting away with it.
Absolutely.
I think we need to see heads rolling. We need to see that people do get punished, whether it's my relative, whether it's my friend, whether it's my chieftain. Things have to happen. We need to realize that when my tribesman who's at the top there eats, it doesn't come down to my pocket. I'm still broke. I've just failed. I'm thinking, when did it change from 70-something shillings to 90? Whatever it is.
108.
I mean, this is crazy. Yeah. Things have to change.
Thank you, Lynette.
Yeah.
Consider for a single second what Lynette is saying. Do we honestly, genuinely think that when people steal, we think it's government money? It actually isn't. It's ours.
Yours.
Do we actually think it is wrong?
No, we don't think it. You know why? Because we and government are two separate entities. All right?
As far as we're concerned.
As far as we are concerned. And no, there are those that have argued that, because of the kind of system of government that we had before, where government was in Nairobi and it was only serving a certain group of people close to Nairobi, then if you come from a far-flung area, then somebody going to steal from Nairobi and bring here, that's a hero.
Essentially, the whole hunter-gatherer mentality.
Yeah.
Somebody goes to hunt,
bring,
and then brings. So essentially, when somebody steals, they're a hunter.
They're a hunter.
As we say in Kiswahili, amenda kutafuta.
In fact, you see, that's how we say
yes,
it.
and the person is a thief. But we
Hustler.
say thief.
Anajua kutafuta.
A hustler actually is a thief.
Though that meaning acquired that negative tinge later on. When it was, should we first put into public use, it didn't quite mean that.
No, but when you hustle somebody, you're hustling
yes.
them. Yeah.
But then it actually meant somebody who keeps themselves busy. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it meant. But with the time, that got lost.
Now it's changing. When it comes to Kenya, now hustler is a sufferer.
An entrepreneur.
Masafara. He's an entrepreneur.
And if you look at entrepreneurship in this country, what are these things that we have invented? What are these new
Deals.
ideas? Now, these deals.
Deal.
Is a deal a business?
No. Deal is opportunity, and you take advantage of the opportunity to go and take everything, including the roots.
And damn the morality that may surround such
forget it.
issues.
Yeah.
So precisely, back to my question again. Do we actually, as a lovely Christian nation, as we like calling it, well, a predominantly Christian nation, presumably who value Christian morality?
Yep. And the other large percentage is also ascribing to a certain religion.
Yes. So do we genuinely believe that these things that we keep talking about are actually wrong? We talk about them as being wrong, but do we believe they are wrong?
No.
Unfortunately, our actions would belie the very statements that we are making, wouldn't they?
Which is what Lynette is basically saying. All of us, as we complain here, these camps are, you're thinking, my God, how can I get to know this person?
If I was there, they would not have caught me.
We even throw in and say, this guy, how stupid can
How
they be?
stupid can they be?
Why
Don't
you
steal
just-
everything.
Why don't you just
Take a little
apply
bit.
the thing and you take a bit?
A bit.
No, so long as you take a bit.
They won't catch you. I mean, it goes underwater.
and the bit is not considered wrong.
No, it's just a bit because the job was done, no?
They delivered, isn't it?
And bit is relative.
It's very relative.
You, when you're saying bit, it's because you're not there.
You're the same person who said 2 million is somebody's milk money.
Yes. Vegetable money.
Yeah.
Someone is found with 30 million in the house that ilikuwa ni mama ya mboga. Hey, a lot of vegetables being eaten in that house.
It's a healthy lot, that one.
Though the word mboga doesn't necessarily mean vegetables. It also means kitoweo.
Matumizi.
Something that matumizi happens. Domestic
You know,
matters.
someone might come, a relative may come and they need something.
That's
Just
we give a little mboga. Somebody will come with school fees problem, mboga. Somebody will come with a hospital bill problem, mboga.
So some breaking news coming out of Kakamega Senator Cleopas Malala has been released after spending the night at the Mumias police station.
Of course he has.
And then you know what had happened earlier. His supporters are poured out in the streets. And now, of course, the supporters will be there like, Mheshimiwa.
And what happened to the charges?
Unajua tumekuwa hapa tangu saa ngapi? There's people who are
It starts with Mheshimiwa tuko na wewe.
Mheshimiwa tuko na wewe.
Yes.
Everybody who was here burning tires expects something.
So they're working.
A day's job, sweat gone like that, never.
So they're working.
Bas. And now then you go and say to where's our where did
you see?
How did we get here?
It's here. That mentality. Whatever it was, that I am owed
How
something.
did we get here?
I'm owed something because I did this.
Of course. And then from this point on, it doesn't matter whether Malala was on the whether there's anything wrong that Malala had done. Whether Malala ought to go back into that Senate and discuss this formula, it doesn't matter.
The formula was the excuse for all these things. And please remember that when you talk to a politician, they'll tell you, these people are always asking. They don't realize that this particular dragon is fat because you feed it.
Of
course.
Yeah.
Of course. So we're coming to the end of the show this morning, and we have had a very lovely proverb today. And this one is?
One who causes others misfortune also teaches them wisdom.
Okay.
The politicians who keep lying to us and telling us all manner of interesting things, assuming that we don't understand, we are becoming wiser by the day. The utterances are akin to the suffering, and they are symbiotic with the suffering. But the Mwananchi is getting wiser by the day.
And you think the politician is scared? Ooh, he's going to run. Nothing.
No.
Like, you get wise.
The politician is not scared now because there's no election tomorrow. Let's have this discussion next year and see.
All right. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Between now and 3 o'clock, you have uninterrupted music, sugar and spice, and everything nice. And then Monique will be here with the drive from 3 to 7. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.